Do I look good today? You know, because in my viewfinder, all I can ever see is a box around my head and a line and a bunch of lines. But I think I look good with the lines. I can't actually see what I look like. Fantastic. Hello. Welcome back to my channel. Don't want anyone to hear me. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. It's not Christmas yet. Me filming this, look at me being all organised. Has anyone else been feeling the lack of festivity, or is it just me? Because for the last 3 months I've not been living in a house. I'm canning it this year. I'm just not doing it. I'm going to do Christmas in January. I mean, January sales, so all the presents will be cheaper. Everything will be cheaper. Everyone's always miserable in January, so it'll be like a little pick-me-up kind of thing. I'm planning to go to Brussels in January for my birthday, actually. No real reason. Don't really have the money to just hop on the Eurostar and go to but I'm going to do it. Watch me not do it. I don't know how many of you guys know, but a few years ago I wrote my own erotica, parodica, Piers Morgan's Vegan Lover. It's available on Kindle via Amazon. It's 99p. I'd really appreciate it if this Christmas, I am doing my other one at the moment, but in case that doesn't come out in time, check this out. Give it a purchase. It's about Piers Morgan and his vegan lover, so what's there not to love about it? It is only 99p, because that's how much a sausage roll from Greggs used to be. So I would love it if you could purchase it and up my Amazon rating, and go ahead and give me a rating on Goodreads. I just really want my silly little story to be an Amazon bestseller an almost entire 4 years after I first published it. I can't believe I did this 4 years ago and I didn't do anything since. But don't worry, I am working on something right now. But in case that doesn't come out, check out Piers Morgan's Vegan Lover, available on Kindle and Amazon for 99p. What is this about? Colleen Hoover, that's what it's about. I think I'm going to get banned from TikTok because I'm on Colleen Hoover slander TikTok, and it was a funny meme, and someone was like, why is everyone being mean to Colleen Hoover? I'm reading It Starts With Us and I really like it. So I just replied, because she's shit. So I think I'm going to get banned. In China, they like to drink hot water. I saw it in a C drama. Something's been bugging me today. I saw a meme on Facebook of a caveman being like, year 7's gonna be my year, as in, you get it. And someone was like, we should have memes that are historically accurate and be educated. And it's like, that we're not really in the year 2023. And I think about this sometimes and I don't like it. We're not in the year 2023. Do you reckon the ancient Greeks were like, do you reckon like Plato was knocking about being like, wow, I can't believe it's the year 500 BC before Christ? No, we have this time system that's based upon, what is it called, the Gregorian calendar? I don't know, but it's based upon Jesus, right? So it's not really the year 2023. It's probably not a Saturday as I'm filming this. It's probably not. Someone's not been keeping track all that well constantly. Like, this can't be a Saturday. This has nothing to do with anything, by the way. I've just not really seen anyone today, so I want to talk a bit. It's really the year like 4.5 billion, yada, yada, yada. And you know what I didn't like once? Once I got too high and I started to disassociate. And I thought about things that I just accepted, a framework that I'd always lived in. But I thought about them properly, days of the week. How sometimes days, like, you'll feel like, oh, it's a Thursday, it's a Tuesday. And I realised that days of the week don't really exist. We've just given them those nouns because it helped, time is like one long continuous sausage and we've just cut it up into smaller sausage links. Cocktail sausages, days of the week, right? That's the unit of measurement I'm going for. Cocktail sausages and links of sausage. So really there's no such thing as there is, because we've created it as such, but before we did, there wasn't really such thing as a Friday or a Monday. It's just day and night and day and night. And I thought about it and then I got scared. So welcome to my video, welcome to my channel. If you've never been on my channel and that hasn't like made you click off, then you're making the right decisions in life. So for today's video, remember to like, comment, subscribe before you even watched it. That's just how it works around here. We're going to look at Colleen Hoover. I've gone back to her. I know I like money. I forced myself to do this against my will. My Merry Christmas, my present from me to you. Another Colleen Hoover book. This time it's reminders of him. And I actually, I'm going to start off and be positive. I have one positive thing to say about this book. There's no sexual assault. That's the only positive thing I can say. Well done, Hoover. Congratulations. So where to begin? Also, remember to follow me on Instagram. I might just follow you back. I want to get to like 5,000 followers. I can't believe I had a Instagram account that had like 20,000 followers before, and then I deleted it just because I felt like it. I felt like being quirky that day. Stupid. Could have had like a brand deal by now. Get me to 5,000 followers on Instagram. Let's just go ahead. Let's just do this. Chapter 1, Kenna. Her name's Kenna. Kenna, our female lead, is visiting someone's roadside grave. I already know from the blurb that it's her ex-boyfriend who died in a car crash because of her. Dun dun dun. There's a small wooden cross. I actually forgot that this happened. There's a small wooden cross staked into the ground on the side of the road with the date of his death written on it. Scotty would hate it. I bet his mother put it there. Can you pull over? The driver slows down and brings the cab to a stop. I get out and walk back to where the cross is. I shake it side to side until the dirt loosens around it, and then I pull it out of the ground. This is just unnecessary, especially as it's not like Scotty's mum is fronting. It's not like she was just pretending to care more than she did. No, she loved her son, and this was a way of expressing that love. And Kenna's a horrible person. I just let's get it out the way with. She's an awful person who shows no real remorse for her actions. There's a bit of lip service, but that's it. Trigger warnings as well. Drink driving and death because of that. I walk back to the cab with the cross in hand. I set it on the back seat next to me and wait for the driver to pull back onto the road, but he doesn't. I glance at him in the rearview mirror and he's staring at me with a raised brow. Stealing roadside memorials has to be some kind of bad karma. You sure you want to take that? I look away from him and lie. Yes, I'm the one who put it there. I can still feel him staring at me as he pulls back onto the road. What cab driver wouldn't immediately throw her out for being this weird? Stealing Scotty's memorial might be bad karma, but one could argue that leaving a memorial up for a guy who verbally expressed his hatred for roadside memorials could be bad karma as well. Well, it's not really for him though, is it? He's not really around to give a shit. It's for the people that he has left behind because of you. And no, that's not like stealing a memorial is not the same. Shut up. Kenna moves into her new place. The door opens and an older, tiny woman stares up at me with a disgruntled look about her. She has curlers in her hair and lipstick smeared to her nose. I don't need anything you're selling. I stare at the lipstick, noting how it's bleeding into the wrinkles hugging her mouth. I called last week about an apartment. You said you'd have one available. Recognition flashes on the woman's prune-like face. I know we all hate landlords here, but what did this old lady do to you? She makes a sound while looking me up and down. Didn't expect you to look like this. I don't know what to make of her comment. They're just saying this because she's hot, trust me. Kenna is in town to be close to the people who are connected to Scotty, which, not sure how they feel about you. The woman takes a step back into her apartment. Welcome to Paradise Apartments. I'll bring you a kitten once you get settled. I immediately put my hand on her door to prevent her from closing it. Wait, what? A kitten? Yeah, a kitten, like a cat but smaller. I step away from her door like it will somehow protect me from what she just said. No thank you, I don't want a kitten. I have too many. I don't want a kitten, I repeat. Who wouldn't want a kitten? Me. It's called the cat redistribution system. Shut up and take the damn cat. She gets the kitten. She's a nasty ingrate. What if I don't find a job right away? Now I'm tasked with the responsibility of keeping a kitten alive. My life just became 10 times more difficult than it was yesterday. Firstly, no sympathy for murderers. Secondly, that reminds me of that Kanye West tweet. What was it? Hold on. Kanye West water bottle. I hate when I'm on a flight and I wake up with a water bottle next to me like, oh great, now I got to be responsible for this water bottle. Big Kanye energy. There's a couch in the living room, but that's literally all there is. A small living room, an even smaller kitchen. No dining room. No bedroom. It's an efficiency apartment with a closet and a bathroom so small the toilet touches the tub. This place is a dump. This would go for about £1,100 in London and she's only paying £435/$550 a month, so get ready for this. Hold on to your hats. I take the responsibility of naming things very seriously. The last time I was responsible for naming someone, I took it more seriously than I've ever taken anything. That could have been because the whole time I sat in my cell during my pregnancy, all there was to do was think about baby names. I chose the name DM because I knew as soon as I was released, I was going to make my way back here and do everything in my power to find her. Here I am. Carpe DM. Colleen Hoover character be normal challenge level impossible. Why do you hate your baby? You should have got 5 more years just for that. Chapter 2. Ledger. So we have swapping POVs. It's the CoHo special. Pure shit. I'm pulling my truck into the alley behind the bar when I notice the nail polish still on the fingernails of my right hand. Shit. I forgot I played dress up with a 4-year-old last night. This is clearly baby carpe diem. Call the kid something more normal, like cogito ergo sum stultus. Google it. Ledger has a colleague called, oh yes, I'm joking around in Latin now, get on my level. Ledger has a colleague called Roman who is sober. I would not be sober if I was a character in the CoHo universe. Ledger works in a bar. His parents are there and he's surprised to see them drunk in a bar. Kenna walks in. I stare at her the entire time she's walking through the bar. I stare at her so hard I accidentally overfill the glasses and water goes everywhere. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You're not a cartoon. He clears off his parents and takes Kenna's order. It's obviously her, though she's not been named yet. What can I get you? I ask her. Water and a Diet Coke, please. She doesn't look at me, so I back away to fulfill her order. Just rude, innit? Rude. Not even looking up as she rude. I want to ask her questions, like what her name is and where she's from, but I've learned over the years of owning this place that asking questions of lonely people in a bar can quickly turn into conversations I have to maul my way out of. But most of the people who come in here don't capture my attention like she has. She has done nothing but be standoffish, please behave. It's because she's so beautiful. There's actually a quote that I didn't bother keeping in because it was making me ill, where I think he said that her face was like artwork, it should be in a museum, which that's not a real description, but okay. Chapter 3, Kenna. She's writing a letter to Scotty, moaning about the town being different in her absence. I probably shouldn't tell you this, and I promise it'll make sense before I finish this letter, but I kissed a prison guard once. We got caught and he got transferred to a different unit, and I felt guilty that our kiss got him in trouble. But he talked to me. Won't they get fired for that? I get all of my knowledge of the US prison system from Orange is the New Black. But he talked to me like I was a person and not a number, and even though I wasn't attracted to him, I knew he was attracted to me. So when he leaned in to kiss me, I kissed him back. It was my way of saying thank you, and I think he knew that, and he was okay with that. It had been 2 years since I'd been touched by you, so when he pressed me against the wall and gripped my waist, I thought I'd feel more. I was sad that I didn't. I'm telling you this because he tasted like coffee, but a better kind of coffee than the prison coffee they served to the prisoners. Coffee, prison prisoners. Okay. He tasted like expensive $8 coffee from Starbucks with caramel and whipped cream and a cherry. It's why I kept kissing him. Not because I enjoyed the kiss or him or his hand on my waist, but because I missed expensive flavoured coffee. And you. I miss expensive coffee and you. Love, Kenna. Every single CoHo female is this insufferably quirky. Do you have coffee? I ask. Sure. Cream and sugar? Do you have caramel and whipped cream? He tosses a rag on his shoulder. You bet. Soy, skim, almond or whole milk? Whole. The bartender laughs. I was kidding. This is a bar. I have a 4-hour-old pot of coffee and your choice of cream or sugar or both or none. That is just uncalled for. I thought America was the land of good fake service. Do not tip him. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know if there is anything in this world I would make look effortless. There are things I want to be good at. I want to be a good mother to my future kids, but mostly to the daughter I already brought into this world. I want to have a yard that I can plant stuff in, stuff that will flourish and not die. I want to learn how to talk to people without wishing I could retract every word I said. I want to be good at feeling things when a guy touches my waist. I want to be good at life. I want to make it look effortless. But up until this point, I've made every aspect of life appear entirely too difficult to navigate. Stop moaning. All of this diatribe because of coffee. I don't know whether she's talking about Ledger or Roman here, so oh no, wait, she's talking about Ledger. I get it now. His hair is fluid like his movements, long dark strands that hang in his eyes and move, that just sounds annoying, and move in whatever direction he moves. He doesn't touch his hair. He hasn't since I've been sitting here. He just lets it get in his way, and then he'll flick his head every now and then, the slightest little movement, and his hair goes where it needs to. Maybe it's easier when you don't have sticky lip gloss on. It's thick hair, agreeable hair. Want my hands in his hair. He and his hair are pretentious douchebags. He puts whipped cream and a cherry on the coffee so she cries. Chapter 4, Ledger. I haven't learned much about her since she walked in here an hour ago, but one thing I know for certain is she didn't come here to meet anyone. She came here for solitude. 3 people have tried to approach her in the last hour and she held up a hand and shot them down without making eye contact with any of them. Now, is this because Americans just love yapping, so people just want to talk to her? Or is it because she's so beautiful that she can't help but turn heads? As soon as she finishes the coffee, I want to ask her what she's having next, but instead I make her sit with her empty mug for a good 10 minutes. I might make it 15 before I work my way back to her. Or you could just do your job. In the meantime, I just still glances at her. There we go. Her face is a work of art. I wish there was a picture of it hanging on a wall in a museum somewhere so I could stand in front of it and stare at it for as long as I wanted. Instead, I'm just getting in peeks here and there, admiring how all the same pieces of a face that make up all the other faces in the world just seem to coordinate better on her. I don't date girls I meet in this bar. Twice I've broken that rule, and twice it's bitten me in the ass. Besides, there's something terrifying about this one. I can't quite put my finger on it, but when I talk to her, I feel like my voice is trapped in my chest, and not in a way that I'm left breathless by her, but in a more substantial way, as though my brain is warning me not to interact with her. Red flag, danger, abort. But why? It's just annoying. It's a hard balance owning a bar and being sober. I want everyone else to be sober, but I also need customers. I pour her the glass of wine and set it in front of her. Maybe don't be a legal drug dealer then. Bro owns the bar. He's not a struggling bartender. He's actually, we find out nearer the end that he's actually minted. So he owns this bar. He's not a struggling bartender who needs a job. It's an odd choice, you know? In my early 20s, I went alcohol free for almost 2 years. Still did loads of stupid. Still did a lot of narcotics. Weird rogue behaviour. Oh, alcohol's the problem. Is it just? But I had to work in bars. I just had to. No one wanted me to do office work because I didn't have a degree. So I had to work in bars, not because I was passionate about bar work. I was alcohol free, but because I needed to pay rent. And I've now been teetotal sober for almost 5 years. No narcotics, no nothing. Like with strong painkillers. If I had the startup money to own a business, I wouldn't have bought a bar with the money like back then or even now. I don't know what CoHo's doing, but I hate it. It's just weird. And it's a weird choice. And there's a bit of stuff about this in the beginning and then it's just never really brought back up again. So it's just weird. Anyway, Kenna orders wine, but she doesn't drink it. When our fingers touch, I feel something else trapped in my chest other than my voice. Maybe a few extra heartbeats. Maybe it's an erupting volcano. Okay, Edward and Bella, calm down. As she's not drinking it, Ledger decides to take the wine away from her because he thinks that she's struggling. Roman notices me staring at her. He leans an elbow onto the counter and says, divorce or death? Roman always likes to guess the reasons people come in alone and seem out of place. He sounds fun. I don't respond to him, but I don't feel right guessing her tragedy, because I'm hoping it isn't divorce or death or even a bad day. I want good things for her because it seems like she hasn't had a good thing in a long, long time. Meets girl for 1 hour. She leaves, so he runs after her like a freak. He tells her to come back after 11. By the way, she doesn't have a job at this point. She's just new to this town. She's just got... But, like, yes, this is what she's doing with her time. Going to a bar and then going back to meet a dude instead of, I don't know, getting a job so she can maybe look for her kid. He tells her to come back after 11. Chapter 5. Kenna. Tomorrow is important. Tomorrow I need to feel Herculean. But the bartender unintentionally made me feel weak by pulling away my glass of wine. I don't know what he saw on my face that made him want to take the wine away from me. I wasn't going to drink it. I only ordered it so I could feel a sense of control in not drinking it. I wanted to look at it and smell it and then walk away from it feeling stronger than when I sat down. I don't know anyone who would do this. Now, every CoHo book has a thing. A hook, a theme, a running conflict. That sounds really, really obvious, but there's always just a thing. So, Verity, trauma and madness. Layla, mental illness. Maybe someday, deafness. Ugly love, trauma, kids dying, and airplanes. So everyone was a pilot in that. November 9, trauma, girl is an actress, boy is a writer. It ends with us. Trauma. And there's always also like a little plot device of someone writing letters. So you've got the letters to Ellen DeGeneres. You got the manuscript Verity was writing. You've got the book that what's his face in November 9 was doing. You got the songwriting of that bloke. Actually, you've got the songwriting of the bloke in Layla, and then you got like the songwriting of the bloke in. So do you see what I mean? There's always like a thing. This is so obvious. And I thought, I mean, it comes up a few times, but I thought like sobriety would be the thing of this book. And I don't know anyone sober, teetotal, like me, who would buy an alcoholic drink in a bar just to test themselves. I don't know anyone who would do that. A, wasting money in this economy. A beer is like a £5. Cocktail's like a £10. Glass of wine is like £8, as if. B, why even chance it? Now, for me, this is all a bit subjective and anecdotal, obviously, but for me, sobriety isn't about having willpower day in and day out, because I feel that willpower can only really get yourself so far. No one has endless buckets of willpower and discipline. I feel it's about setting yourself up for success, which includes not testing yourself in a stupid way. Like, imagine instead Kenna bought a gram of cocaine just to see if she wouldn't do it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can go to parties, but if someone's going to get the cocaine out, I'll leave. Or sometimes I get invited out to bars and sometimes I'll go. And more recently, I've made the decision that I don't want to go. Not because not because I would feel tested. Or I feel tested in people, drunk people just test my patience and I just don't want to be around them anymore because, like, they're really annoying. It's just not interesting to be around. I'd rather be at home writing by myself now. I'm just in that stage of my life, I suppose. But yeah, and of all, like, every book has a thing where CoHo is trying to be different. She's always taken on heavy topics as if she understands them. She insists on writing things that she only has like a cursory knowledge about. She treats people's real problems like fun writing techniques, which is fine for a draft. But you know, after you write the draft, there's an editing process, and generally during the editing process you will do as much research as possible, and I really feel like she mainly skips over that. That's just how I feel. So these themes, these things, these gimmicks and hooks basically never really make sense in the finished product because she exhibits such basic knowledge in these things. It always seems like it's flippant or not being taken seriously. I just don't know anyone sober who would buy a drink just to stare at it and smell it and walk off. And by the way, like, Kenna she doesn't drink because of this drink driving accident that she had, but she didn't have a drinking problem in the first place. So it's just, you know, because you read this and you think, oh, she had a drinking problem. She actually didn't. It's weird. I haven't had alcohol in years because one night of alcohol mixed with a tragedy ruined the last 5 years of my life. And also, why would she waste the little money she has on buying a drink that she's not going to have? It's nonsensical. It's CoHo characters just doing things for the plot. They just needed her to go to this bar. But then they complained that the bar was a bookstore. Why didn't she just keep it as a bookstore or like a cafe? Weird. Now, I'm not going to sleep well tonight. I have no reason to feel accomplished because he made me feel the complete opposite. If I want to sleep well tonight, I'm going to need to turn down something else I want. Or someone. I haven't wanted anyone in a long time. Not since I first met Scotty. But the bartender was kind of hot and he had a great smile and makes great coffee. And he already invited me to come back, so it'll be simple to show up and turn him down.
Huh?
She goes back to the bar. I used to care more about self-maintenance, but 5 years in prison has made me less concerned about hair dye and extensions and false lashes and artificial nails. Yeah, she does no self-care, but she is still so beautiful that she turned down 3 guys in 1 hour, sure. She spent 5 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. There's a double standard for women, even behind bars. When women say they've been to prison, people think trash, whore, addict, thief. But when men say they've been to prison, people add badges of honour to the negative thoughts, like trash but badass, addict but tough, thief but impressive. There's still a stigma with the men, but the women never get out with stigmas and badges of honour. I'm not sure this is true, but okay. Wait, no, liar. What about that Anna Delvey person? The one who went to prison for fraud and she ended up on Call Her Daddy and people like are obsessed with her and love her. CoHo, you just don't know anything. Why don't you know anything about popular culture? I opened the door of the bar. It's louder and smokier and somehow darker than it was earlier. Probably because earlier was daytime and now it's nighttime. Anyway, Ledger's superpower is pointing at things. Look at this text, which I'm not reading out loud just to see what I mean. He's like Kim Jong-un pointing at things. I had no idea pointing was sexy. Clearly, you've never seen the supreme leader of North Korea pointing then. I pull my leg up and wrap my arms around it. I'm nervous. I didn't come back to this town to meet a guy. I'm in this town with a much bigger purpose. One, he looks like he could derail with the point of a finger. So she's here to find her child that she's never met, but has been immediately sidetracked by the first hot guy who points at her. Mother of the Year. He put on a white t-shirt. So simple, but so complicated. How? There's a war in his eyes, and I am by no means Switzerland, but he comes to me anyway. Sits next to me. Right next to me. Are you 10? Are you okay, babe? She lies about her age in case he's ever heard of her or Scotty. The wine. Sometimes I shake my head. It's dumb, but I do this thing where I order alcohol specifically to walk away from it. Yeah, you're right, it is dumb. I don't have a drinking problem. It's more like an issue of control, I think. Makes me less weak. His eyes scan my face with the slightest hint of a smile. I respect that. I don't respect any of you. All CoHo characters just do things to seem more interesting and complicated than they actually are. It's not sincere. Do you really want to know what I do for a living? I'm sure he'd rather have his hand up my shirt than hear whatever it is a girl would say in this moment. And since I don't want to admit that I do nothing for a living because I've been locked up for 5 years, I slide onto his lap. Calm down. I don't want his questions. I have no honest answers. I move a little closer to his mouth. Who are you? Ledger, he says, right before he rips open my past, pulls out what's left of my heart, drops on the floor, and then he kisses me. This is on page 28. I think that this is the quickest a CoHo pair have started a sexual relationship. Like, okay. Scotty told me he loved me halfway into our relationship. It was the night I was supposed to meet his best friend for the first time. That meeting never happened. I can't remember why. It's been a long time. But his friend had to cancel, and Scotty was sad, so I baked him cookies and we smoked a joint, and then I gave him head. Best girlfriend ever. You do not impress me, babe. Kenna realises that she's heard the name Ledger before from Scotty. It was his best friends that she just never ended up meeting, despite them being the loves of each other's lives, and despite Scotty and Ledger living opposite from each other. Okay. Chapter 6, Ledger. She tastes like apples, even though she had coffee earlier, and apples are my favourite fruit. They're probably my favourite food, period now. Get a life. I feel like I've not read the exact same sentence, but the same sentiment I've read before in was it Ugly Love? Where it's like, whatever Rachel likes, I like. In fact, the colour brown is now my favourite colour ever because it's the colour of her hair. Like, it just stupid like 5-year-old shit like that. Kenna decides to stop and leave, so of course Ledger follows her. Kenna starts crying, so Ledger hugs her for a while, then offers her a ride home. I got bored, so I looked at Goodreads, and someone said, I'd otherwise give this a 2 or a 3, but I have a moral obligation to help lower the average score on this book. So anyway, Kenna's sitting in the front of the truck, passenger side, and he starts making out of her, as in truck door open, he's on the outside leaning in. You know, full view for anyone who wants to see or walks by. She guides my hand up her shirt and I grab her breast and she wraps her legs around me and then my jeans are against hers and we're rocking back and forth like we're in high school and this is our only place to go. And I realised recently that CoHo is an erotica writer with barely any plot to propel the sex scenes forward and no one can convince me otherwise. She is not a romance author. I refute it thus. Kicks rock. I refute it thus. She just convinced, let me know if you got that reference, she's just convinced most people that she is a romance author. She's porn for people who don't want to be labelled as porn readers, like 50 Shades, but all of her books are just smut. It's not as in your face as 50, it's more subtle, but again, not romance. It's like socially acceptable porn you could get away with reading on the bus. We could go back inside. She shakes her head and says, no, I like your truck, right before pulling my mouth back to hers. If she likes my truck, told you. I love my truck. My truck is my second favourite thing in the world right now. What a simp. An approaching car stops him from finger blasting her into the stratosphere. Someone ban my channel. Someone make this illegal for me. It's some bloke called Grady, and the conversation is over in 5 lines. It's not very important. I climb into my truck, and she's got her feet up on the dash. All CoHo females are unbearable. He drives her home and has no idea what's going on. She says she doesn't want to see him again and goes inside, and he just stands around shocked. Chapter 7, Kenna. She's writing a letter to Scotty. But yeah, that damn truck. I can't believe he still has it. I still remember the night you pulled up in it to take me on our first date. I laughed because it was such a bright orange that I couldn't understand what kind of person would willingly choose that colour. Bet she was imagining she was with Scotty instead of Ledger. She details the first time she saw him and he smiled at her, so she fell in love with Scotty. And I'm going to have to read all of this out because it's insufferable. You circled the register and went back to the aisle that contained the plates. I didn't have any other customers, so I watched the aisle until you reappeared with a 4th plate and brought it to the register. Word proximity. I rang up the plate and said, you know, you can buy more than one thing at a time. I know, you said, but I only need 1 plate. Then why is this the 4th one you've brought? Because I'm trying to work out the nerve to ask you out. I tried to act nonchalant about your flirtation because that's just what I've always done with men. So I said, it's against store policy for employees to date customers. There wasn't any firmness or truth to my voice at all, but I think you liked the game we were playing. So you said, okay, give me a minute to rectify that. You walked to the only other cashier in the store. You were only a few feet away, so I heard you say, I need to return these plates, please. The other cashier had been on the phone with a customer during your 4 trips to the register, so I'm not sure she knew you were being facetious. She glanced at me from her register and made a face. I shrugged like I didn't know what was up with the guy who had 4 different receipts for 4 plates, and then I turned away from her to wait on another customer. You came back through my line a few minutes later and slapped a return receipt on the counter. I'm no longer a customer. What now? That girl is not paid enough to deal with this nonsense. I like your truck. I wasn't sure if I was telling the truth or if I was lying. It was such an ugly truck it made me hate it. But because it was so ugly, it made me love that you were picking me up in it. Is that why you were late? Your car broke down? You shook your head and said, no, I had to break up with my girlfriend. My head swung in your direction. You have a girlfriend? Not anymore. You shot me a coy look. But you had one when you asked me out earlier? Yes, but by the time I purchased my third dinner plate, I knew I was going to break up with her. It was overdue. Yeah, right, CoHo. This sure is fantasy, because since when do people break up to pursue someone new as opposed to just cheating? Mothers don't usually like me, I admitted. Or maybe it was more of a warning. You smiled. I can see that. Mothers prefer to imagine their sons with wholesome-looking girls. You're too sexy to make a mother feel comfortable. As you got out to fill your friend's truck up with gas, I thought about the wholesome-looking girl whose heart you just broke, simply because I agreed to go on a date with you, and I felt a bit like a snake in the moment. But even though I felt like a snake, I didn't plan on slithering away. I liked your energy so much, I planned to coil myself around you and never let go. And like a snake, she kind of crushed and killed him. I was overwhelmed with questions, but Ledger kissed me and it ripped me in half. Sounds like a violent kiss. Kenna moans that she feels like she's a cheater because she's snogging her dead fiancés. Were they fiancé? I don't know if I've made that up. Hold on. Do you reckon there's a Hoover? Yeah, there's a Colleen Hoover wiki. Of course there is. Hooverpedia. There's not a synopsis. I'm just going to say that they are. They are. So she moans that she's feeling like a cheater because she's snogging her dead fiancé's best friend. Maybe pick another guy then. America is a big place, my dude. To me, I was being kissed by the hot bartender whose best friend died because of me. Not ideal, is it? Everything exploded. I felt like I was shattering. I was allowing Ledger to touch me, knowing full well he'd probably rather stab me if he knew who I was. I didn't like this bit at all. It wasn't compelling, like, forbidden love for me. I felt that she was deliberately withholding information from him so he doesn't hate her as he should for, drink driving and killing his best friend. Her knowing who he is and knowing how she would appear in his eyes, but then almost having sex with him feels quite icky. It feels a bit like coercion in a weird way. Like if she was, and don't anyone say, oh, maybe she was concerned that he would hurt her if he knew the truth, because it's like, okay, sure, but in that case, then just leave. Don't go back. Don't continue trying to dry hump and almost sleep with him. It's a grey area and I don't like it. I also let it happen because if Ledger is back in this town and he's still driving the truck I met you in all those years ago, then that means he's a fan of routine. And there's a huge possibility that our daughter is part of Ledger's routine. Is it possible I'm only one person away from DM? It's a leap in logic, but then it works out for her. And of course, I'm good at writing you bad poetry. I'll leave you with one I wrote on the bus ride back to this town. I have a daughter I've never held. She has a scent I've never smelled. She has a name I have never yelled. She has a mother who has already failed. Move over, Dr. Zeus. Chapter 8, Ledger. Ledger lives across the road from DM because of course he does. Ledger is building a new house for himself. I'm hoping DM isn't in a talkative mood today because my concentration is going to be shit. All I can think about is the girl from last night and how much I want to see her again. I wonder if it would be weird if I left a note on her door. Yes, it would be. Grace is in the kitchen with DM. DM is sitting in the centre of the table with her legs crossed and a bowl of eggs on her lap. She never sits in chairs. She is always on top of things, like the back of the couch, the kitchen bar, the kitchen table. She's a climber. Even the CoHo children are insufferably quirky. My parents bicker a lot, and it's mostly in fun, but I've never even seen Grace and Patrick bicker in the 20 years I've known them. I want that. Someday. Might be a bit conflicting if you end up with the girl who killed your bestie. There's some rubbish about him taking her to a baseball game and then some sickening cutesy kid stuff, but whatever. Hi, Roman, DM says from the backseat in a sing-song voice. I've only had one cup of coffee, don't talk to me. Roman is 27, but he and DM have met somewhere in the middle of their love-hate relationship because they both act 12. Roman is me. Chapter 9, Kenna. Kenna can't get a job. Then they apologise, but not before looking me up and down. I know what they're thinking. It's the same thing my landlord Ruth said when she saw me for the first time. Didn't expect you to look like this. Because she's too pretty to be a convicted felon. The 7th place I try is in a grocery store. It's a little farther from my apartment than I'd like, almost 2.5 miles. That is walking distance and you would get your daily steps in. Behave. Laughs in European. She gets chatting with the shift manager in the bathroom. She waves a flippant hand. We really don't have a policy. We aren't a chain. We can hire whoever we want. To be honest, I'm obsessed with Orange is the New Black. Not me just realising like how underdeveloped all of the side characters are. They pop up here and then, but it's just Whatever. To be honest, I'm obsessed with Orange is the New Black, so if you'll promise to let me know which parts of the show are bullshit, I'll give you an application. But why do all CoHo side characters have more personality than the main ones? Whilst filling her application, Ledger appears. I'm not going to do this right now. I'm not going to lead him on when he has no idea who I am. I'm not going to risk this job by fraternising with customers. Can you go? I whisper it, but loud enough for him to hear it. He makes a face. Did I do something wrong? No, I just really need to finish this. His jaw tightens, he pushes off the wall. It's just that you act like you're mad, and I kind of feel bad about last night. She's busy. Get a hint, you idiot. He finally leaves. Be here for Monday at 8 for orientation. Do you have a driver's license? I nod. Yeah, I'll bring it. I leave out the fact that I just got my driver's license last month after months of working to get it reinstated. Thank you. Am I crazy? Or should drink drivers who kill not be allowed to drive legally ever again? It's different if you have an accident and someone dies, right? But Kenna drove drunk. That is a choice. She chose to do that and someone died. So it's not like a real accident or a real mistake, is it? I don't have sympathy for her, and the book tries to make us feel really sympathetic for her. It doesn't work. One more thing. You know the guy I was talking to, Ledger? She raises an amused brow. What about him? Does he have kids? Just a niece or something. She comes in here with him sometimes. Cute girl, but I'm pretty sure he's single and childless. A niece? Or could it be his deceased best friend's daughter? Does he shop here with my daughter? Yes, obviously. She decides to go speak to DM's grandparents, Patrick and Grace, aka Scotty's parents. As in, just go to their house. As in, is there no better way to do this? And then, rather turn up. Imagine that. Your son's killer just turns up your house being like, let me see my daughter. Chapter 10, Ledger. Ledger is getting questioned by Grady about the mysterious woman from last night. Who was she? Whitney asks. No one you know. We know everyone around here, Grady says. This is giving Shirley Jackson the Summer People. I don't know how. She's not from here, I say. I might be lying. I might be telling the truth. I wouldn't know since I know very little about her, other than what she tastes like. Romance? Or cannibal novel? It's a new fun game I'm trying. Who the hell? Go away, Duolingo. Ledger is coaching T-ball. It's as interesting as watching football. Did I grow in an egg? She asks. No, D, you're a human. Humans don't grow in eggs. We come from eggs. So you're wrong. We grow in. I stopped talking because I was about to say we grow in our mother's bellies, but I'm always careful to avoid any talk of mothers or fathers around DM. I don't want her to start asking me questions I can't answer. I'm not sure how wise that is, but okay. I dropped Roman off at the bar to spare him a trip to McDonald's. And yes, we're at McDonald's even though DM didn't wear her cleats at all during the game because she gets her way with me more often than she doesn't. Future spoilt brat confirmed. I don't want to play T-ball anymore, DM says out of the blue. She's dipping her french fry into honey when she makes that decision. The honey dribbles down her hand. I tried to get her to eat her fries with ketchup because it's a lot easier to clean, but she wouldn't be DM if she didn't do everything the hardest way possible. I'm gonna hit myself. I don't care about someone's quirky kid. Who is this book for? Who is this book for? Her books are marketed towards teenagers. Are teenagers going to find this interesting? I ain't a teenager. I don't find it interesting. I decided at this moment that DM is a ridiculous name, so I'm no longer going to call her that. I'm going to call her Diaz. Diaz asks about her mother. Ledger rings Grace. Grace explains that she panicked and made up some weird lie that DM doesn't live with her mother because her mother's car isn't big enough. That's it. Chapter 11, Kenna. Kenna has never even seen a picture of DM. I don't know how normal this is. They started fighting for custody the day that they were told I was pregnant. The baby didn't even have fully developed lungs, but they were already fighting for its first breath. I lost the custody battle before DM was even born. There aren't many rights a mother has when she's sentenced to several years in prison. The judge said, because of the nature of our situation and the duress I'd caused to Scotty's family, he could not in good conscience honour my request for visitation rights, nor would he force Scotty's parents to maintain the relationship between my daughter and me while I was in prison. I was told I could petition the court for rights upon my release, but since my rights were terminated, there's probably very little I can do. Between DM's birth and my release almost 5 years later, there's been little anyone could or would do for me. I don't know how normal any of that is. I'm sure one of you out there does legal USA work, so tell me if this situation is probable. She only met the parents once before. So it's just interesting, isn't it? She met the parents once and they were in complete custody with no visitation rights. And from what we know, she's not an alcoholic or addict. She got drunk and high once and caused a disaster and therefore lost her legal rights forever. I don't know enough about this. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a lawyer based in the USA, and there's no specific state this is based in either. CoHo wrote in her acknowledgements that she just didn't give them a state to live in. But for me, it just all sounds a bit convenient and a bit, I don't know. Like, to me, it would have been a bit more realistic if maybe she had been or become an addict in jail and was only recently sober. And then that would tie in with the whole, like, her testing her sobriety. It'll tie in a bit better than she doesn't actually have a problem, but she wants to know that she can walk away from a glass of wine even though she doesn't have a problem. So, what? Kenneth decides to go to the grandparents' house to speak to them. After I got hired at the grocery store today, I walked home and took a nap. I didn't want to show up while DM wasn't at Grace and Patrick's, and if Amy is right and Ledger doesn't have kids, it's a reasonable assumption that the little girl he coaches in T-ball is my daughter, and judging by the amount of Gatorade he bought, he was preparing for a long day of a lot of teams, which, using deductive reasoning, would mean it would be hours before DM was back home. Why do all CoHo characters LARP as Sherlock Holmes? The Benedictine Benadryl Sherlock Holmes. I wonder what I'll see in their eyes when they find me at their front door. Will it be shock? Hatred? How much does Grace despise me? I tried to put myself in Grace's shoes. Sometimes. What do you mean sometimes? As if this is some gracious thing. Also, I know the legal systems aren't great, but is it really that bad that there's no other way for her to contact them? She has to show up at their house, because that would never go down well. And by the way, we do find out that not once during the 5 years she was in prison, she tried to contact them. She tried to send a letter. She tried to say sorry. Not once. She doesn't say sorry to them at all over the course of this book. So unlikable. I would keep Diaz back from her just on that factor alone. Imagine you have a son, a beautiful young man that you love more than life. Absolutely not. Boy mums are Satan. You're so proud of him. Even when he brings home his new girlfriend, the one you heard moaning too much in the middle of the night, the girlfriend you saw looking around the room while everyone else was praying over dinner, the girlfriend you caught smoking at 11 at night on your back patio, but you didn't say anything. You just hoped your perfect son would outgrow her soon. This is how CoHo feels anytime any of her boys date. Also, two of those three problems are actually because of Scotty. So love how the girl's being blamed because, of course, all women are the enemy, right? If you're a mum. Imagine your worry because I hate repetition. Imagine your worry because your son shows. He always shows. Imagine he doesn't answer his cell phone when you call to see why he didn't show. Imagine you start to panic as the hours stretch on. Normally you can feel him, but you can't feel him today. You feel full of fear and empty of pride. Imagine you start to make phone calls. You call his college, you call his employer, you even call the girlfriend you don't care much for, if only you knew her number. Imagine you hear a car door slam, you breathe a sigh of relief, only to fall to the floor when you see the police at your... Sorry, I'm just thinking of this TikTok that I said this on my third channel already. I saw a TikTok. Someone said, if you ever feel like you overreact to situations, just know that one time there was a knock at my mum's door at night time and she saw someone wearing a high visibility jacket. I'm going to laugh and I'm going to cry. She saw someone with a high vis jacket at her front door and she thought it was the police, so she immediately fell to the floor as did, screaming and crying, no, because she thought it was a police officer coming to tell her bad news, because it was late at night. And after 5 minutes of being on the floor, she got up and answered the door, and it was a delivery driver who had gone to the wrong address. Sorry, that's what this reminded me of. Imagine hearing things like, I'm sorry, and accident, and car wreck, and didn't make it. Imagine having to read Colleen Hoover books over and over, and imagine hating how gimmicky her writing is, but imagine having to do it for your audience because they love it. Imagine it gets even worse. Imagine that. Imagine this. Imagine finding out it didn't have to be this way. He wasn't even dead. 6 hours they estimated he had lived. Several feet he had crawled, searching for you, needing your help, bleeding, dying, for hours. Imagine finding out that the girl who had moaned too loud and smoked the cigarette on your patio at 11 o'clock that night could have saved him. 1 phone call she didn't make. 3 numbers she never dialed. Yeah, this is crazy. I would never ever speak to Kenna again. Why? I already know what happens, so I feel fine saying all of this still. Why wouldn't she call the police even if she was drunk and even if she thought his body was dead? Who does that? I guess shock makes you do weird things, and maybe in a different writer's hands we would still be able to be sympathetic to Kenna, but because this is CoHo and all of her characters are entitled or unlikable, I won't hold my breath, and guess what? I'm right. Even though there's a shock twist at the end that in CoHo's eyes justifies Kenna's actions, but it really doesn't. The closer I get to their house, the more I'm starting to hate me too. I'm not even sure why I'm here without being more prepared. This isn't going to be easy, and even though I've been preparing myself for this moment every day for 5 years, I've never actually rehearsed this. Okay, idiot. She sits on the curb outside fretting, and then Ledger appears, because all CoHo men are like Edward Cullen, Ledger realizes that she's not Nicole. That was a fake name she gave him. She's Kenna. He's put it all together. Now he looks like he wants to rip it all apart. He points at his house. Go. The word is sharp and demanding. I take a step into the street away from him. I feel myself begin to tremble just as he steps into the street and closes the gap between us. His eyes are on the house across the street again as he reaches his arm around me, pressing a firm hand into my lower back. He begins pushing me along with him as he points towards the house opposite where my daughter lives. Get inside before they see you. Crazy that she actually goes inside the house with him, with this stranger who hates her. She's an idiot. Sorry, no. Going into a strange person's house when they hate you is a genius move. Sorry. She realizes that everyone hates her still. He has a go at her and says he's going to take her home, and whilst he's distracted, she decides to run over to Grace's house to knock on the door and yell, because like I mentioned, she's a genius. Please, I whisper, knocking harder. My whisper turns into panic as I hear Ledger approaching me from behind. I'm sorry, I yell, beating on the door. My voice is a fearful plea now. I'm sorry, please let me see her. How could they resist such a compelling argument? You know you failed when, like, this is a serious subject and I'm here laughing about it and making light of it. You know you failed to have gravity. Ledger carries her back because this is a CoHo novel, so any excuse to manhandle a woman, no matter how justified, and they start calling the police. Please, I cry, not knowing what I'm begging for. I just want someone to listen to me, to hear me out, to understand how much I'm suffering. I want him to be the man I met in the bar last night. I want him to pull me to his chest, to make me feel like I have an ally. I want him to tell me it's going to be okay, even though I know with everything in me that it will never, ever be okay. Lady, I don't care. He drives her home. I press my forehead to the passenger window and close my eyes, wishing I could start over from the beginning. This is very, very main character. Chapter 12, Ledger. It's typical for people to be praised and deaf, heralded to the point of heroism sometimes, but nothing anyone said about Scotty was embellished for the sake of remembering him fondly. He was everything everyone said about him. Nice, funny, athletic, honest, charismatic, a good son, a great friend. I know we shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but considering he's a male in a CoHo book, I highly doubt all of this. She was driving when she shouldn't have been. She was speeding. She was drinking. She flipped the car. And then she left. She left Scotty there to die. And she walked home, crawled into bed because she thought she could get away with it. He's dead because she was scared she'd get into trouble. And now she wants forgiveness. He's still going to have sex with her though, isn't he? I feel stupid. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel taken advantage of. I was right, but doesn't last long. Patrick expressed concern several months ago when we found out she was released. He thought this might happen, that she might show up wanting to meet DM. I even put a ring camera on my house that points to their front yard. It's how I knew someone was sitting on the curb. I will accept that explanation. DM looks like her. I always assumed she did since I didn't see much of Scotty in DM's features, but until tonight I had no idea just how much she resembles her mother. They have the same reddish shade of brown hair, straight and flat, not a wave or curl in sight. She has Kenna's eyes. Maybe that's why I saw red flags last night. My subconscious recognized her before I could. What? Red flags? Apart from like that one little instance of red flags, like the rest of it was just drowned out by him being horny all over her. Stop rewriting history, you weirdo. Ledger tells her to go back to Denver. Kenna looks torn between walking away, responding to me, or screaming. She hugs herself and looks at me with two huge, devastated eyes. She tilts her face up towards the sky for a second, inhaling a shaky breath. Flip you, Ledger. The sting of agony in her voice makes me flinch internally, but I remain as stoic as possible on the outside. Her words weren't even a yell. They were a quiet and piercing statement. She slams my truck door and then slaps my window with both her palms. Flip you! Yeah, that's going to help your case, isn't it? I drive away while thinking of a million things I should have said, a million questions I still don't have answers to. Why didn't you call for help? Why did you leave him there? Why do you think you deserve to cause another upheaval in the lives you've already destroyed? Why do I still want to hug you? Get a grip, you horny loser! Chapter 13, Kenna. I feel like I'm living my worst case scenario. Not only did I not get to meet my daughter today, but the only person who might have been able to lead me to her is now enemy number one. I hate him. I hate that I let him touch me last night. I hate that in the brief time I spent with him yesterday, I gave him all the ammunition to label me a liar, a whore, an alcoholic, as if murderer wasn't enough. There's a girl in her building who has Down syndrome, so boy, I hope this is handled sensitively. My door swings open and I immediately sit up. The girl from the stairs walks into my apartment uninvited. Why are you crying? She closes the door behind her and leans against it, scanning my apartment with curious eyes. Why don't you have any stuff? Even though she just barged in without permission, I'm too sad to be upset about it. She doesn't have boundaries. Good to know. Maybe be more sensitive. And this is a CoHo book. No one has any boundaries. The girl just starts eating her food and picking up her kitten and asking her questions despite Kenna asking her to leave. The girl is called Lucy but prefers the name Lady Diana because, of course, she also works at the grocery store that Kenna just got a job at. She leaves and Kenna writes a letter to Scotty. In my case, I was just beginning my sentence when I gave birth to DM, which made it to where she wasn't allowed to stay with me in prison, is this grammatically correct? Because it sounds clumsy. Which made it to where? Why not just say which meant she wasn't allowed? Kenna wasn't allowed to see her baby or pump her breast milk, so her clothes would get soaked, and she meets another inmate whilst in this state. Boy or girl, she asked. Girl. What do you name her? DM. That's a good name. A strong name. I assure you it is not. Ivy, the inmate, tells Kenna to read while she's in prison for escapism. I was never a big reader. Don't worry, I don't think CoHo is either. Ivy wasn't giving me a pep talk. In a lot of ways, it was the opposite. She wasn't saying that I would move past what I was feeling or that things would get easier. She was telling me this was it. The misery I felt was my new normal. I could either learn to live with it or I could let it consume me. Ivy essentially tells Kenna to get a grip. She's my new favourite character and she's only in this one scene. Ledger has no idea how much of his actions tonight have broken the last few pieces of me. You're the one who killed someone. It's just like constant pity party. She calls the kitten Ivy. Chapter 14, Ledger. Ledger speaks to Patrick, who asks if they should get a restraining order against Kenna. The 5-star reviews for this book on Goodreads make me concerned for the future of humanity, but I will spare you guys from hearing them. They are shambolic. I completely understand CoHo's audience. I know exactly who they are, and I will avoid them at all costs. There's no room for Kenna in this picture. Some things can be forgiven, but sometimes an action is so painful that the memory of it can still crush a person 10 years down the road. Patrick and Grace get by because DM and I help them forget about what happened to Scotty long enough for them to remember to get through each day. But if Kenna is around, his death will slap them in the face over and over and over again. Don't worry, change is right at the end. And you best believe, Ledger continuing to hook up with Kenna after this means a double betrayal to both Scotty and Scotty's parents. Instead of Ledger telling the truth about how he thinks Kenna is going to be a nuisance, he gives Patrick empty platitudes to stop him worrying about the situation. Ledger tells Roman what's really going on. I don't really care how Kenna feels. No grandparents should be forced to have a set-up visitation with their son's murderer. Roman raises a brow. Murderer? That's a bit dramatic. Her actions led to Scotty's death, sure, but the girl isn't some cold-blooded murderer. He kicks a pebble across the pavement. I always thought they were a little too harsh on her. Okay, good for you. Read the room. You aren't worried about her? Who? DM? He shakes his head with a small laugh, like I'm not following. I'm talking about Kenna. Does she have family here? Friends? Or did you drop her off alone after telling her to go away? I stand up and brush the back of my jeans. I know what he's getting at, but it's not my problem. At least that's what I keep telling myself. Maybe you should go check on her, he suggests. I'm not going to check on her. Roman looks disappointed. You're better than this. This is so weirdly forced, I don't like it. Roman takes a step closer. She's responsible for the accidental death of someone she was in love with. As if that wasn't hard enough, she went to prison for it and was forced, as she should, have to go to prison for drink driving and killing someone, and was forced to give up her own child. I think Roman is Colleen Hoover's voice coming through. You can't just drink and drive and kill someone and not face the consequences. Oh, she went to prison. Big deal. As she should. It's funny, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. And I feel like out of all the people I go through on this channel, I feel like E.L. James is by far the worst writer, because it's literally every other sentence is just, his steel eyes blaze at me and turn my insides to jelly, and oh, I am Icarus flying far too close to his sun, and I hope my wings don't melt and I fall and I die, but then I die every time I look into his grey eyes stealing. Like, every other sentence is literally that, and it's painful. So I think, like, she's actually, and the abuse of the thesaurus that she does, her just typing away like synonyms for sexy. She, I feel, is by far the worst writer out of all of these people. I've come to that, right? But I think worst person, I think out of all of them, James is probably the least, I hate this word, problematic, you know, because there's the Native American racism issues with Twilight. There's the offensiveness of the House of Night series. And then there's the sheer amount of just nonsense from Colleen Hoover. So when you put them all side by side, I really feel like 50 Shades is actually not 50 Shades. No, wait. Because 50 Shades, in the first one, it has a assault scene and it's never treated as such. But so do like all the other ones. And more. in fact. And with Colleen Hoover, I really feel like I understand who she is as a person, because I know when her voice is coming through the text, and I know she has certain agendas. So I think when it comes to like worst person, I think it's CoHo. Is that mean to say? I feel, it's just a feeling I have. James is actually the least offensive of the lot. Baffling. She finally shows back up hoping to meet her, and you do God knows what with her in your truck, and then you prevent her from meeting her daughter, and then, but it's not his place, and then you tell her to go away. No wonder you've been slamming shit around all night. I don't think Kenna is the victim here, guys. Before he goes back inside, he turns to me and said, "You're the reason I'm not dead in a ditch somewhere, Ledger. You gave me a chance when everyone else gave up on me. You have no idea how much I look up to you for that, but it's really hard to look up to you right now. You're acting like an asshole." Roman walks back into the bar. "You didn't kill someone, you big weirdo." Like, all he did was he got an injury, and because they're ex-professional footballers, okay, Roman got an injury that ended his career, and he got addicted to painkillers. That's it. He didn't kill anyone. I've been unequivocally on Patrick and Grace's side since the day I found out what happened to Scotty, but the more seconds that pass between Roman's words and my next decision, the more uneasy I feel about it. I love how it's taken less than a day for him to change his moral compass, and he's obviously going to decide to go see Kenna because she makes his dick tingle. Ledger worries that Kenna might kill herself, so he goes to check on her. Kenna isn't holed up inside her apartment. She's outside, looking like she doesn't have a care in this world. She's playing with fireworks, sparklers, her and some girl twirling around in the grass like she's a kid and not a grown-ass adult who just hours earlier acted like her world was coming to an end. That's what you get for being nice. Anyway, Ledger notices that Kenna is only pretending to be happy, and Ledger knows that because he watches her from the shadows like a weirdo. Kenna notices him and just goes inside his truck. Like, is anyone here aware of stranger danger? I finally clear my throat. Are you going to be okay? My concern is buried beneath a stone-cold exterior, so I know my question seems forced, as if I don't really care what the response might be. Kenna tries to get out of the truck again, but I grab her wrist. Hate him. "That's not it," she says. "You're worried if I end my life, you'll be feeling guilty that you've been so unbearably cruel to me." I hate her. "That's why you came back. You don't care if I actually kill myself. You just don't want to be the impetus for my decision." She shakes her head with a shallow laugh. "You did it. You checked on me. Your conscience is clear now. Goodbye." She's so dramatic. I don't think he was cruel or unbearably cruel. He was just being overprotective over people he cares about so they don't have to face their son's killer. She is so unlikable. Show people a bit of remorse and they might let you see your stupidly named kid. I turn my key so I can roll down her window. The girl leans in, smiling at us. "Are you Kenna's dad?" Her question is so out of left field, I can't help but laugh. Kenna laughs too. DM has Scotty's laugh and smile. Kenna's laugh is her own. One I haven't heard before this second. One I want to hear again. Is bro not embarrassed that he's horny for his best friend's killer? Anyway, Kenna and Lady Diana leave. I'm not sure I could be on her side even if I wanted to be. This whole situation contains so many nooks and crannies and corners that I get the feeling choosing sides is going to be the downfall of all of us. Learn something called nuance. Chapter 15. Here's the thing. It shouldn't matter if a mother isn't perfect. It shouldn't matter if she's made one big horrible mistake in the past or a lot of little ones. If she wants to see her child, she should be allowed to see her, even if it's just once. Oh yeah? What if she's a nonce? Should she be allowed to see her child then? Only Sifs and CoHo protagonists deal in absolutes. Kenna has a backstory of being in foster care for 2 years because her own mother sucked. Her own mother would leave her home alone as a child for a week at a time. It's a way for us to sympathise with Kenna, but it falls flat because, as I've said, Kenna is very unlikable. And I don't understand why CoHo insists on writing these serious topics and she fumbles it completely every single time. Like, babe, stick to the hungry caterpillar or something. Or don't, actually, because knowing you, it would be renamed like as the horny caterpillar, and it would just be about insects getting it on with toxic love interests. Release me from this pain. She details about how her relationship with her mother was so tumultuous and verbally abusive that she goes no contact for 5 years, until 3 years into her prison sentence and desperate due to the impending termination of her parental rights, she gets in contact. I thought maybe if my mother fought for visitation rights as a grandparent, I could at least be left with some control over what happened to my daughter in the future. And maybe if my mother had visitation rights with my daughter, she could bring my baby to the prison after she was born, so I would at least be able to get to know her. So she's aware that her mother is an abusive shit, but she's that desperate to see her baby, she would be okay to leave her kid around her just so it would benefit her in some way. If you have rights as a grandmother, you could bring her here to see me every now and then. I sounded like the 6-year-old version of myself, scared of her, but still in need of her. It's a 5-hour drive, my mother said. I didn't know where she was going with that comment. It's pretty obvious where she's going with that comment, you dingbat. I haven't received one phone call from you in 3 years, Kenna. Now you're asking for favours? Do you know what's funny about this? Kenna did not bother sending letters or anything to apologise to Scotty's parents either. Nothing. No contact. Radio silence. Didn't even try. But thinks she can just turn up at their front door and bang and yell, and they'll be like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, let's let her see her daughter. I was just hoping she'd grown a conscience in the years since I'd last seen her. Is it weird that you can apply the same thoughts to Kenna, or is it projection or what? She hadn't changed. She was the same self-centered narcissistic narcissistic woman I had grown up with. Apple hasn't fallen far from the tree then. Chapter 16, Ledger. Ledger is talking to Patrick about Kenna and Grace. I'm getting loyalty whiplash. 1 minute I feel horrible for Patrick and Grace. The next I feel horrible for Kenna. Bro has no loyalty to the people he's known his entire life and has helped out with the past 5 years just because he grinded on some girl a few nights ago. I get what Patrick is saying, completely. But I also know that after getting to know Kenna just over the last couple of days, the hatred I had for her is starting to turn into something else. Maybe that hatred is turning into empathy. I feel like that could possibly happen to Patrick and Grace if they gave her a chance. All because he dry humped her in a truck. What a stunning turn of events. Before I can even think of something to say, Patrick reads the expression on my face. She killed our son, Ledger. Don't make us feel guilty for not being able to forgive that. Ledger should think about how he'd feel if DM grew up, met a dude, and then the dude drunk drove her to her death. Would he be able to forgive that? Would he? No. Patrick wants her out of town because he and Grace don't feel safe now. I already know the real twist at the end is going to be like, oh, Kenna actually did stay behind to help Scotty, as if that changes the fact that she drunk drove in the first place. And I mean, she stayed behind for all of like 2 seconds, guys, before being like, nope, I'm going. They changed the subject to reminisce about Scotty because CoHo loves trauma porn. And then he just cries. Me too, dude. I go inside and close the door, wondering if it will ever get better for him and Grace. It's only been 5 years, but will he still need to cry alone in 10 years? 20? I want so badly for them to heal, but the loss of a child is a wound that never heals. It makes me wonder if Kenna cries like Patrick and Grace do. Did she feel that kind of loss when they took DM from her? Because if she did, I can't imagine Grace and Patrick would willingly allow her to continue to feel it, since they know what it feels like firsthand. Do you know what? I was thinking, what am I even doing this book for? It's not that bad. I think you have to remember that I get very used and normalized to how nonsensical and like batshit these books are as well, and it mars my judgment a little bit. I explained this entire plot to Vangelina, and she was like, what is wrong with CoHo? And I was like, oh yeah, when you type it, I guess it is pretty out there, isn't it? But anyway, this is gross. What Ledger just said here. Scotty is gone, dead, robbed of like 80 years of life, never coming back. DM is alive, happy and healthy with her grandparents. Yeah, Kenna can't see her, but at least Kenna knows she's alive and she's being treated well. Patrick and Grace will never feel that way again. It's such a piss poor comparison, but Hoover really feels like she's doing something here. Thanks for nothing. Chapter 17. Kenna is writing another letter to Scotty. She has been doing this for 5 years and keeps them on Google Docs in case DM wants to know about him one day. She's also doing her first day at work and sees Ledger's truck turn up. It gave me a little bit of hope. If he feels bad enough for how he treated me, maybe there's a chance he could eventually grow empathetic towards my situation. She's quite calculated, isn't she? Some would even say manipulative. Would you see how entitled she feels to people feeling bad for her? She decides to badger him to prove she's not annoying, which, I don't know, sounds counterproductive to me. I hate that he looks better under fluorescent lighting. How is that even possible? It's not, Colleen. No one looks good under fluorescent lights. CoHo, why must you turn my office into a house of lies? I don't like that I'm thinking good things about the man who physically pulled me away from the house my daughter was in. Do these characters forget that they live in America and could easily get shot for trespassing? She decides to ignore him, but has to bag his groceries. Ledger gets frozen dinners, steak, Worcestershire sauce, Pringles, animal crackers, Fruity Pebbles, milk, chocolate milk, and a lot more Gatorade. Based on his selections, I conclude he's a single guy who spends a lot of time with my daughter. The last items the cashier rings up are 3 cans of SpaghettiOs. I'm jealous he knows what my daughter likes, and that jealousy shows in the way I toss the cans into the sack and then into the cart with a thud. Maybe she should be grateful that someone gives so much of a shit about her daughter and is trying their best to help bring her up. I'm sorry I can't be empathetic to Kenna because she's annoying and she's selfish. When I was in his bar the other night, before I knew he was the owner, I couldn't help but notice how diverse the employees were. That made me appreciate whoever the owner was. The other 2 bartenders, Razzie and Roman, are both black. One of the waitresses is Hispanic. Racism's ended, guys. I like that he's a figure in my daughter's life. I want her to be raised by good people. And even though I barely know Ledger, so far, he seems like a decent human. Wow. Bare minimum. I mean, you don't even know if they get a living wage yet, so I'd hold off on singing his praises so far. She follows him to his truck because it's store policy and sees one of DM's scrunchies, so she starts bugging him about her and she takes the scrunchie. I want to tell him that if he's going to insist on shopping here, he should bring my daughter next time. Chapter 18. Ledger. Roman keeps buying cupcakes from a bakery because he fancies the married woman who works there. Most ethical CoHo male character. Also, that goes nowhere, by the way. Goes nowhere. I want what's best for DM, I say immediately. I've always wanted what's best for DM. I just don't know if what I used to think was best for her is still what's best for her. Humps a convicted manslaughterer once. Flip you, he mutters. I'd rather wait until Cupcake Girl's marriage falls apart. Does Cupcake Girl have a name? Everyone has a name. The scene ends after that. It's very abrupt. Kenna decides to turn up to his bar to have a coffee. Go somewhere else, you weirdo. They small talk. I shrug. I mean, I made it to the NFL, so I didn't suck, but I wasn't good enough to get my contracts renewed. Scotty was proud of you, she said. She looks down at her drink and cups her hand around it. Yeah, sorry. If someone accidentally killed my best friend, I would not be sitting around yapping with them like this. I want to tell her she can go upstairs to the apartment Roman stays in so she can dry her clothes, but it feels wrong being nice to her. It's been a constant battle in my head for the last couple of days, wondering how I can be attracted to someone I've hated for so long. He offers her a ride home. Her feet are against the dash when I settle into the driver's seat. It's rude. She asks if he regrets kissing her and he nods and she's like, good night, and storms off. I mean, what do you expect? Chapter 19. Kenna. I think about kidnapping DM sometimes. I'm not sure why I don't follow through with it. That's a great idea. Traumatize your bio kid by stealing her from the only people she's ever known. But from right here in this lonely apartment, it's hard not to think of how great it would be to take DM and go on the run. Even if it was just for a few days before I got caught, I could give her everything while I had her. Ice cream, presents, maybe a trip to Disney World. Would have a lavish week-long celebration before I turned myself in, and she'd remember it forever. She'd remember me. She would remember the weird, traumatic weekend when a complete stranger kidnapped her. Kenna is a freak. Also, you don't have money for an Uber. How are you going to go to Disney World? And then, by the time I got out of prison for kidnapping her, she'd be an adult, and she'd probably forgive me. Because who wouldn't appreciate a mother who was going to risk going back to prison just to experience one good week with their daughter? Or she'd have years of anxiety thinking strange people are going to take her away at any moment. Why are all CoHo pro tags so entitled and so stupid? Like, that is so entitled. And there's also the fact that she doesn't know me at all. She doesn't even love me. I'd be ripping her away from the only parent she knows. And while that might sound appealing to me, how would that sound appealing to you? Are you stupid? Well, yes, she is stupid. Kenna whines about being lonely. Be more likable then and you'll make some friends. She's only trying to latch on to Ledger in the hopes of seeing her daughter and because he's hot. Kenna whines more about how when she met Scotty's parents, she was out of place. She didn't pray at the dinner table. She wore a low-cut top. And there's this bit about how Scotty had her hold his cigarette whilst he went to the toilet, but his mum caught her and was like, use this cup as an ashtray because none of us smoke. And Kenna felt embarrassed by this. Sounds like Kenna didn't make a good impression because of Scotty, but Scotty's a saint, sure. And anyway, in the last chapter, Ledger was telling Patrick all about how he and Scotty used to get high and sit under the jungle gym. So, double standards. Anyway, the next morning when we were leaving, Scotty's mother couldn't look me in the eye. Her embarrassment seeped into me, and I knew for certain in that moment she didn't like me. As we were pulling out of his driveway, I pressed my forehead against the passenger window of Scotty's car. That was mortifying. I think your mother heard us last night. Did you see how tense she was? It's jarring for her, Scotty said. She's my mother. She can't imagine me screwing any girl. It has nothing to do with you in particular. She's a boy, Mum. Scotty grabbed my hand. I can do that. Next time she'll love you so much she'll be pushing for a wedding and grandbabies. Yeah, I said wistfully. Maybe, but I doubted it. Girls like me just didn't seem to fit in with any family. Yeah, girls like me don't fit in any families despite wanting the normal nuclear family, marriage, kids and white picket fences. We're just so abnormal. We don't fit in anywhere. Chapter 20, Ledger. He keeps thinking about Kenna. Scotty was good. I always assumed Kenna wasn't because of that one night, that one cause and effect, that one terrible choice she made. Ow! I just got a cramp in my hand. This book is killing me. But dude, Kenna didn't get drunk and snog a co-worker at a Christmas party. She drunk drove, whilst high as well, and killed someone. It being just, one mistake is not a good hill to die on, ironically. Maybe that's why I'm here, sitting in my truck, watching her load groceries into cars. I'm not sure she's noticed I've been lurking in the parking lot for half an hour, most normal CoHo male. And this is the second time that he's hidden in his car staring at her, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Grace just appears with DM for some forced drama. Grace's hands are shaking as she starts clicking her key fob. Kenna has stopped walking. She's just standing in the middle of the parking lot staring at us. When she realises what she's seeing, that her daughter is just yards from her, she abandons her customer's grocery cart and starts heading in our direction. This is so stupid. She should be doing things the proper legal way instead of forcing herself on these people at every opportunity. So she, chases them. But Grace gets DM in the car. DM isn't even buckled all the way in when I say go and shut her door. I mean, considering her dad died in a car crash, that doesn't seem wise. Also, how did Ledger neglect to tell Patrick and Grace where Kenna was working? To make up for it, Ledger gives Kenna a lift home. Ledger fetches her purse and sees that she has a manuscript of some sort inside. It's the pile of letters to Scotty, but he doesn't snoop. She keeps walking. You told her to leave. You saw me coming and you told her to leave. Why'd you keep doing this to me? I continue driving at the pace she's walking until she finally turns and faces me through the window. Why? She demands. Maybe because you insist on not doing things the proper way and you're just trying to harass these people. Let them live. Do you really think you can confront Grace in the parking lot of a grocery store? Well, I tried to do it at their house, but we both know how that turned out. I shake my head. The location isn't what I'm referring to. I don't know what I'm referring to. I work to gather my thoughts. I'm confused because I think she might be right. She tried to approach them peacefully the first time and you can't just go to someone's house, someone's ultimate safe place when you killed their son. You can't just turn up at their door having had no contact with them for years because you couldn't be bothered to write them. I hate all these people, and I hate how Scotty's not Scotty, Ledger's maybe she's right. It is her fault Scotty's dead. She cannot just show up to Scotty's parents' house and start demanding things from them. Kenna gives a sob story about DM's birth. All Kenna does is do sob stories, and she's not a good storyteller, so I don't know how anyone enjoys this, but I'm not the multi-millionaire successful author, am I? I'm so grateful to them. She says, you have no idea. Pretty sure at this point she's not said nor thought that once. Kenna says all she wants to do is see DM, nothing more, despite all those thoughts of kidnapping her in the previous chapter, but oh well, what is consistency? Ledger feels bad for Kenna, so he gives her his phone with photos of DM on. I never could have imagined what it would be like for a mother to lay eyes on her child for the first time. The sight of DM on the screen steals Kenna's breath. She slaps her hand over her mouth and begins to cry. She cries so hard she has to set the phone on her legs so she can use her shirt to clear her eyes of tears. Kenna becomes a different person right in front of my eyes. It's as if I'm witnessing her become a mother. It might be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I feel like an absolute monster for not helping her experience this moment sooner. CoHo's pro-natalist agenda is leaping off of these pages. But at the same time, I feel like I'm betraying two of the most important people in my life. If Patrick and Grace knew I was here right now, showing Kenna videos of the child they've raised, they'd likely never speak to me again. I wouldn't blame them. There's just no way to navigate this situation in a way that I don't feel like I'm betraying someone. I'm betraying Kenna by keeping DM from her. I'm betraying Patrick and Grace by giving Kenna a glimpse of DM. I'm even betraying Scotty, though I don't quite know how yet. I love how he's grown up with these people and is co-parenting this child, and he's throwing it all away, figuratively, because he dry humped a girl in his truck. CoHo men ain't shit. Kenna has no food in her apartment, so Ledger says he will buy her dinner. That is your best friend's ex, you weird man. Chapter 21, Kenna. I thought I'd feel different after finally seeing her. I was hoping there would be a sense of closure within me, but it's almost as if someone has stretched open the wound. I thought seeing her happy would make me happier, but in a way, it's made me even sadder in a completely selfish way. You are as dumb as you are annoying. I don't blame anyone but myself. Really? Funny way of showing it. Ledger is good looking, but not in the way Scotty was. Scotty was more the boy next door. Ledger isn't the boy next door. Ledger looks like the guy who might beat up the boy next door. He's rough around the edges, and the fact that he owns a bar doesn't soothe that image any. I still have no idea what he looks like other than he has long hair. Ledger tries to apologise, but Kenna says it's fine and she's glad that people care about DM, finally. Kenna asks if Ledger hates her. He shakes his head. I don't know, Kenna. He shifts in his seat so that his attention's more directed at me. That first night you walked into my bar, I thought you were the most intriguing girl I've ever met. Intriguing how? She did nothing. Ledger says she looked unremorseful at court, and Kenna is all, how dare he? I was devastated. I can hear his footsteps following me, but it forces me to walk even faster until I'm up the stairs inside my apartment. I set my stuff down on the counter and Ledger is standing in the doorway to my apartment. Go away. I hear my door close. Did he leave? I spin around, but Ledger is standing inside my apartment. Say my apartment one more time. She starts crying. Ledger says her presence benefits no one right now. It would destroy the shaky peace Scotty's parents had built up. DM isn't even aware anyone is missing out of her life either. DM would be stressed if Patrick and Grace were stressed, etc., etc. It's actually quite logical. Don't worry, he refutes it at the end. My presence here is selfish. He knows it. They know it. I'm not here to fill some void in my daughter's life. I'm here to fill a void in mine. It's self-awareness, but it gets negated by the end, don't worry. Kenna says she can't leave because she doesn't have any money due to only working part-time, so Ledger offers her another part-time job at his bar, because of course, but no one can know her real identity. What could possibly go wrong? I grab my notebook and write the most important letter I've ever written to Scotty. Dear Scotty, she looks like both of us, but she laughs like you. She's perfect in every way. I'm so sorry you never got to meet her. Love, Kenna. I just can't really force myself to care about this. Is it because I'm not a parent and therefore, by default, I am soulless? No. Chapter 22, Ledger. We are fast forwarded to Kenna's first bar shift. Roman nods. Marianne asks questions, he says. She's been wanting us to hire her nephew as a bar back. This isn't going to sit well with her. Just tell Marianne that Nicole is temporary. That's all she needs to know. Roman shakes his head. You really didn't think this one through, Ledger. I thought about it plenty. Maybe, but you thought about it with the wrong head. True dude. Ledger, especially considering that Ledger is rich, so he could have just given her the money, not messed around with this like part-time job thing. Ledger goes to see DM do a dance performance with her dance class, but of course she doesn't do it properly and just runs around doing something else because she has big, not like the other kids energy. Patrick and Grace legally make all the decisions for DM, and rightfully so. If I found out someone close to me was sharing information about DM after clearly knowing I'd asked them not to, I'd be more than livid, and I'd immediately cut that person out of my life. I can't take that chance with Patrick and Grace. I'm already doing enough behind their backs just by giving Kenna this job. This level of betrayal is actually kind of crazy. Imagine this as a Am I the Arsehole post. I, 27M, am friends with a family, Grace 40F, Patrick 40M, and DM 5F. DM is their grandkid and the child of my best friend Scotty. Scotty died in a car accident because his girlfriend was drink driving. She went to prison for 5 years and during that time had Scotty's baby, who was given to Patrick and Grace. I help out the family whenever I can. Kenna has no legal rights to DM. Recently I met Kenna and I've been secretly helping her out and giving her info about DM against Grace and Patrick's wishes. Am I the arsehole? I would genuinely love for someone to actually post this just to see what Reddit says. Though let's be real, the comments would just be full of people saying make the grandparents take a paternity test because DM probably isn't even Scotty's because all women are whores. You can't quit dance yet, Grace says. We've already paid for 3 more months. DM likes to try new things. I don't look at her willingness to quit all the things she tries as a negative personality trait. I think it's a strength that she wants to try every sport she can. If you immediately give up, then you're never going to have the time to get good at something though. Why are all CoHo characters dumb? It's like they just want to be contrarian, but they're always wrong. When Patrick starts to speak, I can tell half of Grace's attention is still on the bathroom door. We filed a restraining order against DM's mother. Grace says, she chased us down in the grocery store parking lot. I don't feel safe, Ledger. Oh, I forgot about that. I'm glad he forgot about it. Yet somehow still feel the need to defend her like it was my fault we were all in that predicament in the first place. I mean, the restraining order, fair enough, right? You can't act unhinged and it not be without consequences. And I just know we are meant to feel sympathetic towards Kenna. I just know that's what Colleen wants, and yet I'm not, because she's annoying and entitled. I also know that CoHo wants us to villainize the grandparents for not forgiving Kenna for killing their son, as if Kenna is somehow automatically entitled to their forgiveness just because she spent 5 years in jail, which some would argue is not a long enough time for taking someone's life. So I take another drink and don't respond to their news. I just sit silent, trying not to give off traitor vibes, because that's exactly what I am right now. There's no way around it. Imagine betraying your chosen second family just because you think a girl is pretty. CoHo men ain't shit. These bros ain't loyal. Ledger has an anniversary for a cancelled wedding coming up. She just wasn't good enough for DM, and if Grace knew that, she'd thank me for calling off the engagement rather than continue to bring it up in the hopes I changed my mind. Oh, but the person who drunk drove and robbed DM of her father is good enough? Huh, Ledger. Chapter 23, Kenna. I've had 5 years of practice. I didn't tell Ledger about my kitchen experience because it's always awkward to talk about, but I worked in the kitchen when I was away. A couple dozen bar patrons is a walk in the park compared to hundreds of women. Grow up. Say you were in prison. Accept it. He told me Mary Ann has been dating a guy for 7 years and they're about to have a second child together, but she refuses to marry him because she hates his last name. Colleen, what century is this, babe? You know, like all names are basically made up. DM. Come on, that's a pretty made up name. You know, you can just like make up your last name. You can change your last name. You can keep your last name. You can do what you want. CoHo. It's the 21st century, babe. Come on. Meet me in the future. Marianne puts her hand on her stomach and walks to a refrigerator. She looks to be around 5 months along. There's no way that you know that from sight alone. And if so, that is the worst superpower I've ever heard of. Ignore her, Aaron says. Marianne craves gossip as much as she craves tomatoes. She laughs. It's true. I like to talk shit. I don't mean anything by it. I'm just bored. Why is Marianne me? It's quieter in the alley, but I can still hear the bass of the music. Marianne came back to chat again earlier and she saw I had pieces of paper towel stuck in my ears to drown out the music while I worked. I lied and told her I get migraines easily, but I really just hate most music. Shut up. You are the worst. You are a pound-shot Bella Swan. Ledger returns and they talk about his ex, Leah, who he cancelled his wedding to. She asked me if I was going to love my future kids more than I love DM, and I said no, I would love them all the same. And that made her angry? It bothered her how much time I spent with DM. She said when we started a family of our own one day, I'd have to spend less time focusing on DM and more time on our family. It was like an epiphany. I realised she didn't see DM fitting into a potential future family like I did. After that, I sort of just checked out, I guess. I spend too much time on Reddit because I can 100% believe this. Leah sounds like a terrible bitch. I'm half kidding when I say it, which is why Ledger laughs. But the more I think about it, the more irritated I get. Seriously though, screw her for thinking DM isn't worthy of the same love as kids who don't even exist yet. I agree. Exactly. Everyone thought I was crazy for breaking up with her, but for me it was a precursor to all the potential problems we'll be facing down the road. He smiles at me. Look at you being an overprotective mother. I don't feel so crazy now. As soon as he says that, acknowledges me as DM's mother, my face falls. It was a simple sentence, but it meant everything to hear it come from him. Even if it slipped out by accident. Get a life! I'm not allowed to be in my own daughter's life, but whoever Ledger decides to date gets to be in her life, and that automatically makes me jealous of whatever girl that ends up being. Bro cancelled a whole wedding for DM. I'm sure he's not just letting people into her life willy-nilly. Ledger offers Kenna a lift home. Would you say you're more artistic or more scientific? That's an odd question. I shrug. I don't know. Artistic, I guess. Why? Ledger grabs a clean glass and walks over to the sink. He fills up with water and takes a sip. DM has a wild imagination. I always wondered if she got that from you. My heart fills with pride. I love when he reveals little tidbits about her. Grace and Patrick should get a restraining order against Ledger. DM might grow up to be a writer someday. She loves to make up words, Ledger says. If she doesn't know what something is called, she just invents a word for it. Like what? Solar lights, he says. The kind that line the sidewalks? We don't know why, but she calls them patchels. I just know DM is going to be insufferable when she grows up. She goes home. That's it. Chapter 24. Ledger. He's coaching T-ball and the mums appear to gossip about Kenna. But they know DM and they know me and they know the story. So they think they're entitled to the truth. The same way that Kenna thinks she's entitled to forgiveness. The mums gossip and say that Kenna is a crazy addict who could steal DM. We know that she's not an addict, but we also know she does have thoughts of stealing DM, so... Ledger picks up Kenna for work. What if she's only asking so she can get a handle on DM's schedule? The more she knows about DM's activities, the easier it would be for her to show up and take her. I feel guilty even thinking that, but DM is my number one priority in life, so I'd feel even shittier for not feeling a little overprotective. I mean, she could try to kidnap DM. Ledger doesn't know her well enough to know that that wouldn't happen, but we already know that she has been considering it. So Ledger sucks as a guardian. He tells her they filed a restraining order and she has the audacity to ask why, as if she didn't turn up unannounced, banging at their front door and also chased Grace through a parking lot. She honestly hasn't done anything to deserve being served a restraining order. Really? It would low-key serve Ledger right if Kenna played the long game and stole DM from under his nose. It would serve him right for just thinking with his dick. He wouldn't care to protect and be nice to Kenna if she wasn't fit. I want to see that story. I want to see it as a potential forbidden romance, but then the bad person actually does the bad thing and leaves everyone destitute. To cheer Kenna up, he shows her DM's dance performance. It makes me laugh. There's a joy to her voice that isn't usually there, and I wonder if that joy would always be present if DM were a part of Kenna's life. No shit. Why do these people always state the obvious? Why am I being handheld? She wants to try everything, all the time, but she never sticks to anything because she gets bored of it and thinks the next thing will be more interesting. They say boredom is a sign of intelligence, Kenna says. Well, I must be Einstein, because this book is killing me. Kenna walks over to him and he lifts a hand. They high-five like they've known each other a lot longer than one shift. It's just rush like everything CoHo does. Thank you, Kenna says. It's the first hint of excitement I've ever seen come from her that has nothing to do with DM. I have no idea what they're talking about. I was gone a few hours last night and it's like she's developed a personal relationship with everyone here. It's because she's just that likable, except for when we are in her POV and then we never see this likability. It's like Midnight Sun trying to retcon Bella into this funny, considerate, strong woman when all of the Twilight Saga begs to differ. You don't want to hear music? She faces the sink, but not before I see her expression falter. I hate music. She hates music? Is that even a thing? Why do you hate music? She looks at me over her shoulder. Because it's sad. Shut up, Kenna. Music is the one thing that grounds me. I couldn't imagine not being able to connect with it, but Kenna is right. Most songs are about love or loss, two things that are probably incredibly difficult for her to absorb in any medium. Speak for yourself. I only listen to I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love on repeat, and that's mostly about killing vampires and people turning into zombies. So Ledger feels left out that people are getting to know Kenna in a way that he doesn't, despite him hanging out with her so much. She's right. In the end, if there's nothing good going on in your life, almost every song becomes depressing, no matter what it's about. Listen to It's Not a Fashion Statement, It's Death Wish, and then get back to me. I love my music to be either all about killing vampires or getting revenge on people and coming back from the dead just to get revenge on people. And then I actually stopped scripting just so I could listen to My Chemical Romance for a little bit. I know. Gerard Way, come on my podcast, please. I love you. Chapter 25. Kenna. Kenna finally has enough money to get a new phone. She meets Lady Diana's mum, who invites her to a Mother's Day lunch. I don't think she even goes to that. She goes to work. Her and Roman go upstairs to look for a table for the luncheon.
Superintendent Chalmers, welcome. I hope you're prepared for an unforgettable luncheon.
Runts are what we call leftover drunk people at the end of the night that no one claims. Sometimes we put them on the couch up here until they sober up and remember where they need to go. Is this a real thing? Because I swear health and safety laws in England would never. You'd just be chucked out on the streets, I swear. Not that Roman seems like the judgmental type. He actually seems like a decent person, and he's handsome enough that I'd probably look at him differently if I didn't already know what it was like to kiss Ledger. Keep it in your pants. So how do you and Ledger know each other? He's the one who injured me playing football. I paused at the top of the stairs. He ended your football career, and now you're friends? I'm not sure I follow how that trajectory could have occurred. I knew exactly what Colleen was doing here, because she is not slick. Ledger used to play pro football, and no, him injuring another player during a game and it ending their career is not the same as drink driving and killing someone. Behave. He laughs quietly. Yeah, I guess so. I'll give you the condensed version. He opens the door and starts grabbing chairs. I had to have knee surgery after the injury, Roman says. I was in a lot of pain. Got addicted to painkillers and spent every penny I made in the NFL on my addiction. He sets two chairs outside the door and grabs two more. Let's just say I messed up my life pretty good. Word got back to Ledger and he tracked me down. I think he felt somewhat responsible, even though what he did to my knee was an accident. But he showed up when everyone else bowed out. He made sure I got the help I needed. Well, at least Ledger helped him somehow, because Kenna doesn't help anyone, not even herself. Ledger turns up, sees them together, gets jealous. Chapter 26. Ledger. He's jealous. I could see Roman being attracted to her. I don't know Kenna that well, but she's probably desperate enough to attach herself to anyone who could be an excuse for her to stay in this town. Ouch. Roman rolls his head, like rolling his eyes wouldn't convey his irritation enough. You think I'm trying to hook up with her? You think I would do that to you after everything you've done for me? Ledger saw her as a nice friend. Roman laughs. You are so full of shit. You played in the NFL. You own a lucrative business. You're building a ridiculous house. You aren't broke, Ledger. If you wanted her to leave town, you would have written her a check to get rid of her. I'm tense, so I tilt my head to the side until my neck pops. She wouldn't have taken a handout. Did you even try? I didn't have to. I know Kenna, and she wouldn't have taken a handout. See? It could all be solved by Ledger just giving her money. How did this happen? How did I go from absolutely loathing this woman to feeling something else entirely? Am I that pathetic a friend to Scotty? Am I that disloyal to Patrick and Grace? Yes. I didn't hire Kenna because I want her to leave. I hired her because I like being in her presence. I hired her because I think about kissing her every time my head meets with a pillow at night. I hired her because I'm hoping Patrick and Grace have a change of heart and I want to be around if that happens. How does he like being in her presence when she's always mad at him? Make it make sense. Also, I hired her because I hate all the repetition. It's like all of CoHo's writing is like it feels like she's always trying out writing techniques, which but that's not a bad thing, but it feels, I guess, predictable, formulaic. You know what you're going to get when you're reading her work. It feels, I guess, just amateur, just not done well. Chapter 27. Kenna. Kenna was eavesdropping on that conversation the whole time. So now she doesn't trust Ledger's intentions. To be fair, neither do I. As we head to my apartment, I feel short of air. I want to roll down the window, but if I do, I'm worried he'll know it's because I can't seem to breathe properly in his presence. I'm pretty sure rolling down a car window is an entirely normal action that won't get psychoanalyzed, but what do I know? These characters are all Sherlock Holmes. They go back to Kenna's. He heads that way and I grab a couple of chairs. By the time I make it to my stairwell, he's already headed back down to grab the rest of the chairs. He steps to the side, pressing his back against the railing to make room for me. But when I pass him, I can smell him. He smells like limes and bad decisions. Funny. That's how this book smells. She tells him she eavesdropped. Was I wrong? His question is barely above a whisper, but it feels like a scream echoing inside of me. Would you not do anything for DM? I blow out a frustrated breath. That feels like a trick question. Of course I'd do anything for her, but not at the expense of others. I don't think. That legit is a trick question, so I don't know which character is more annoying in this instance. Ledger dips his head until our eyes meet again. He's looking at me pointedly when he says, there is nothing in this world that will make me happier than getting you to meet DM. If I knew how to change their minds, I would do it in a heartbeat, Kenna. This is quite the turnaround for someone who spent 5 years hating the person who killed Scotty. Ledger kisses her. Scotty who? As much as his kiss makes me feel, it's nothing compared to the heartache that would follow if the Landrys found out he's seeing me behind their backs. I can't have that hanging over my head. Or at least someone's thinking of the Landrys. They stop and Ledger leaves, so she writes a letter to Scotty. I like how she's badgering her dead ex with her new boy troubles. I've already lost you for good. That's hard enough. I also like how it keeps being framed that Scotty was lost. He was just lost. You know, it was an incurable illness. No one could help. He was just lost. He wasn't killed directly because of Kenna's actions. Chapter 28. He's with DM as he doesn't have a life outside of this child. How old will I be when you're 200? Dead old, I say. Her eyes grow wide and I immediately shake my head. We'll all be dead. No one lives to be 200. That is cheery. I love you too. I want to go to work with. I close DM's door before she finishes her sentence. I don't normally rush them off this way, but as we were walking through the parking lot, I received a text from Kenna. All it said was, please come get me. It's not quite 4 yet. She said she didn't need a ride when I asked her yesterday, so my concern was immediately heightened when I got the text. Yes, rush, betray, desert the family you know and love for the random girl you find fit. Kenna is upset because she just got served the restraining order. The worst part is, I don't blame them for how they feel about Kenna. The impact of her choices has been detrimental to their lives, but the impact of their choices is becoming detrimental to her life. And why would they care about her life when she killed their son? He takes her for a snow cone to cheer her up because she's 12. Chapter 29, Kenna. Kenna is moaning about the restraining order, obviously. Actions meet consequences. Did you ever bring DM here? I ask him. He uses his spoon to point down the street. The dance studio is about a block that way. Bro really does not know her well enough to be saying all of this stuff. I would love if the twist ending was that she actually just steals the kid. That would be so much better. I don't know, better just for me, not for CoHo's raving fan base, but still. Instead of going to work, he takes her to see his new house. I'm happy for him. At least life works out. For some people. There are lines like this peppered throughout. Earlier there was something about how life chooses some people to put down, as if her personal responsibility in not drink driving isn't a single factor. Ledger doesn't really want to be in this beautiful house anymore because he will be like a 20-minute drive away from DM. Kids ruin everything. Chapter 30, Ledger. Ledger is conflicted about keeping Kenna around and giving her false hope. He calls her into his office and says that if you want to leave town and need money, then just ask me, so she gets offended by this. They are interrupted by Leah showing up at the bar. Marianne is walking towards me. She grins and leans over the bar when she reaches me. Roman was getting swamped, so he asked me to grab you. I was kidding about Leah. I was just trying to build some angst for you because girls love angst. You're welcome. I don't know what she's about to do, but if she tried to kiss me, it would make my night. I'm tired of the back and forth of her. I'm tired of hiding her. I'd give anything to be able to get to know her better without worrying about the consequences, to be able to ask her questions that have nothing to do with Scotty or the Landrys. I want to openly kiss her. I want to take her home with me. I want to know what it's like to fall asleep next to her and wake up next to her. Hello? What about Scotty? Kenna puts in her 2-week work notice. She has been there for all of 2 days, I swear. I stare at my truck with an intense urge to drive straight to Patrick and Grace's house and tell them all about Kenna. I want to tell them how selfless she is. I want to tell them what a hard worker she is. I want to tell them how forgiving she is, because every single one of us has been making her life a living hell, yet she somehow doesn't seem to resent us for it. She killed their son. Why is drink driving being minimized by this? Why are the parents expected to just roll over and get over it and forgive Kenna? Hoover, you pick some really weird hills and topics to die on. Chapter 31, Kenna. She's being driven home by Ledger, but neither are speaking to each other, but Ledger follows her up to her apartment. They go inside. Ledger wants her to... I'm gonna get emotional. My eyes are tearing up. I'm actually about to get a bit emotional. And now I'm getting more emotional because I know what I'm about to say is so stupid and everyone's going to judge me and think I'm insane. But whilst I've been staying at this hotel, I was like, do you know what? I fancy ordering some Indian food. And I did. And it wasn't like, your normal anglicized, like British Indian. I had this, what was it called? Because usually, like, it was, because I don't know how to explain it. I guess because what do you normally get in like an English Indian takeaway? You get poppadoms and some sort of tikka or a korma, like most British people would, some sides, onion bhajis, but this was like South Indian, so there was this sambar broth that I had with this masala dosa, and it was just like different. It wasn't your usual kind of takeaway that you get, and it was so good. And I'm starving right now, and I've just decided in my head, that's it, I'm ordering it again, because it was so good. It was all vegan. It was beautiful. There were these like kind of cauliflower wings but with like spices. That's genuinely what I just got emotional in my own head because I just decided that's it, that's my meeting. It's getting to me, man. I think I'm getting cabin fever. I just want to like home cook food. It's not fun. I don't have the money to be like in and out of bloody hotels. I ain't had no sponsors this month, for Christ's sake. I probably sound so out of touch right now. I miss home cooking stuff. This is going to sound ridiculous, but there's no mini fridge, so I can't buy things that are meant to like stay refrigerated to eat. Like, I've just been living on like biscuits and random Deliveroos. I love my life. Merry Christmas. Christmas Eve is tomorrow. Brilliant. Merry Christmas to me. Anyway, those were tears of joy, by the way. Like that feeling that you get when you're like, oh, I'm so hungry and I can't decide what I'm going to eat. No, that's it. I'm just going to order a takeaway. And like the joy that you feel. Just me. This is how I get my kicks. I'm sober, guys. This is how I have to get my kicks. Anyway, where was I before I just had a breakdown about ordering some delicious food? Ledger wants to read one of the Scotty letters. He wants her to read it to him. I'm not thirsty. I'm not either, but I drink the rest of the apple juice straight from the container as a preventative measure because I feel like I'm about to be parched with him standing in my apartment like this. Just his presence here is enough to make my throat run dry. Behave. CoHo characters are eternally thirsty. They're like Tantalus. I've always wanted to be a locksmith. That makes Ledger laugh. A locksmith? I nod. Why a locksmith? Because no one can be mad at a locksmith. They show up to help when people are in crisis. I think it would be a rewarding job to make people's shitty day a little bit better. Ledger nods appreciatively. I can't say I've ever met anyone who wants to be a locksmith. I think that is the most CoHoing a CoHo character has ever CoHoed. CoHo-ho, Merry Christmas. I sometimes wonder if we'd even be talking right now if I didn't know DM. Why does it matter, I ask? Because it would be the difference between you wanting to be with me for me or wanting to be with me so you could use me for my connections. Way to ruin the mood, you dummy. You should go. I start to walk towards the door, but Ledger grabs my wrist and pulls me back. Grr. I've just written grr for these next bits, okay? That's my really insightful commentary. I spin around, but before I can yell at him, I see the look in his eye. What, his one eye? I see the look in his eye. He's a cyclops now, is he? It's apologetic, sad. He pulls me to his chest and wraps his arms around me in a comforting embrace. I'm stiff against him, unsure of what to do with my lingering anger. He slides his hands to my arms and lifts them, wrapping them around his waist. Grr. 2. Ledger keeps us wrapped tightly together when he says, in a matter of a few weeks, I went from hating you to liking you to wanting the world for you. Grr. 3. He slides his hands into my hair and looks at me with sincerity. She would be lucky to have a woman like you in her life. You're selfless and you're kind and you're strong. You're everything I want DM to be someday. When? I love how every CoHo book is Colleen trying to write about a serious subject and she fails every single time. It's quite remarkable. Like, at this point, I've gotten over my rage and I'm starting to become impressed. The same thing happened to me doing the Twilight stuff. Because, I want to meet Stephanie Meyer. I want to talk to her. I feel like it'll be a meeting of the mimes. Mimes? Mr. Mime? She's Mormon. I kind of love that. But I want to meet her. Is it going to be like the Book of Mormon? I want to meet her. I love her. I want her to adopt me. And I feel like I'm starting to become actually impressed by CoHo. Because every time, it's a swing and a miss. Every single time. Like, how are we trying to justify and humanize drink driving someone to their death. In what universe would someone fall in love with the person that killed their best friend? Oh yes, I forgot, of course. The Colleen Hoover multiverse of mental illness. She kisses him. He rushes to go get a condom from a kiss. Eager. I wish I could write a quick letter to Scotty. I feel like I need to warn him of what's about to happen, which is stupid because he's dead and it's been 5 years and I can have sex with whoever I want, but he was the last person I've ever had sex with, so this feels like a really big moment. Not to mention, it's with his best friend. I'm not sure Scotty would be quite happy with that letter, Chief. I'm so sorry, Scotty, I whisper, but not sorry enough to stop it. It's just weird. He starts to walk me backward towards the inflatable mattress. He lowers me onto it and starts to remove the rest of my clothes. As he's working on my jeans down my legs, I say, I haven't been with anyone since Scotty. How would this not be an immediate boner killer for Ledger? I guess he's just stronger than all of us. He cuts me off with another kiss. Then he says, you've already exceeded my expectations, Kenna. How? She's not even done anything yet. Ledger continues to work his finger over me, then inside of me. And the sensation is so intense, I can't even kiss him back. Really, babe, really. Kenna. I can barely open my eyes and look at him. His lips graze mine. He whispers, this is too good. I have to stop. He pulls out of me, and when he does, I whimper. Yeah, she's that tight from being in prison for 5 years that he only lasts 2 seconds before stopping. Behave. He slides his thumb up the centre of me. That's a new PG-13 way of saying flaps, isn't it? I'm hurting myself here. This is killing me. He groans when my teeth clamp onto his skin, and his groan brings me right over the edge. She basically jizzes from the sound of his voice alone. Boo. Sorry, but also, imagine explaining this to DM when she's old enough. Yeah, so your father was my best friend, and your mum killed your father in a drink driving incident that was entirely her fault. She went to prison, she came back out, and then we fell in love. And now I'm your stepdad. The end. Anyway, they have sex. Hey Siri, schedule sex with Kenna for 1 hour from now. I'm only including that bit so I can set off people's phones. After sex, she promptly writes a letter for Scotty and reads it to Ledger when he asks. I had sex with your best friend tonight. I'm not sure that's something you want to hear, or maybe it is. I get the feeling if you can hear these letters from wherever you are, you would want me to be happy. And right now, Ledger is the one thing in my life that makes me happy. If it's any consolation, the sex with him was great, but no one can hold a candle to you. Love, Kenna. Sorry? Ledger is definitely Kenna's consolation prize. He grabs the notebook and tosses it aside, then he wraps an arm around me and pulls me on top of him. It was good though, right? I press a finger to his lips and drop my mouth to his ear. The best, I whisper. At that exact moment I say that, a loud clap of thunder rolls throughout the sky, outside of perfect timing. It's so loud I can feel it in my stomach. Oh shit, Ledger says with a laugh. Scotty didn't like that. You better take it back. Tell him I suck. I immediately slide off Ledger and lie on my back. I'm sorry, Scotty. You're better than Ledger. I promise. She killed him! And they're just laughing about the fact that they're... The audacity. Chapter 32. Ledger. It's the next day. Ledger goes off to see DM and Grace. Grace makes it to my yard a few seconds later. She shoots me a teasing look as if she knows why I was out all night. She might think she knows, but she wouldn't be looking at me like this if she had any clue who I was with. The betrayal, it's like he's cheating on them. She's been like a mother to me my whole life, so I'd honestly probably still buy her flowers even if Scotty was here. Double betrayal. The idea of Kenna going throughout the entire day without her motherhood being acknowledged, it's Mother's Day, by anyone makes me angry at this whole situation. I sometimes want to place that blame directly on Patrick and Grace, but that's not fair either. They're just doing what they need to survive. It is what it is. A messed up situation with no evil people to blame. We're all just a bunch of sad people doing what we have to do to make it until tomorrow. Some of us sadder than others. Some of us more willing to forgive than others. My God, shut up, man. You're taking simp to whole new levels. Ledger gives Kenna flowers and wishes her a happy Mother's Day. Patrick and Grace took DM to his mother's. That just makes it sound like DM is a boy, you know. There's a specific word for what that is, and I learned it, but I probably forgot it. Ledger invites Kenna to watch him work in his house, which sounds like a great date, mate. I made you something. I wait until we're at the stop sign, then I text her the link. Her phone pings, so she opens the link and stares at her screen for a few seconds. What is this, a playlist? Yeah, I made it this morning. It's over 20 songs that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that could remind you of anything sad. This is actually really nice. CoHo has finally done the impossible. She's written something romantic without it being creepy. Well done, babe. Well done. Her loneliness is starting to hurt me. I want to see her happy. I want to be able to say all the right things when I tell Patrick and Grace why they should give her a chance. But the fact that I still don't truly know her history of Scotty is one of the many things I'm afraid might prevent the outcome we both want. Every time I'm with her, the questions are always on the tip of my tongue. What happened? Why did you leave him? I don't understand how Ledger can be fine with dating Kenna without knowing the answers to those questions, those very important questions. It's bizarre. I'm still thinking of that sandbar broth. Do you know why? Do you know why it's affected me so much? Because my first boyfriend, he had, was it an aunt? A relative that would make this most delicious umami broth and home make some chapatis, dip that, and it was just like, it was spicy, it was so spicy, and it was so delicious and so umami, and so like, and I have no idea what it is, and it haunts me. I have no idea what that, it was just delicious. I've never tasted anything like it. It was so good. And the sambar broth that I was talking about reminds me a bit of that. Not quite there, but so good. I think I actually did ask him once, do you know what that was? And he sent me a recipe, but like the pictures didn't, because it was kind of like yellow based. I don't know what it was. I think it was made from lentils. And also the recipe that I looked at, it was like, oh, it takes like 24 hours to make. It's like, well, no wonder it was so good then. Anyway, I'm reading this and I'm just thinking of the delicious food that I'm going to have tonight. I mean, this place makes vegan naans. Do you know how many places make those? Barely any. Anyway, he asks her if he can know and if she can read the letter she wrote to Scotty about that fateful night. I know she's a good person who had one bad night. It happens to the best of us. I have to tell you, when I read that line, I cackled. Like, my boyfriend was like, what are you reading? I was like, you get a load of this. I told him the plot and I was like, is there any scenario in which you would date someone who killed your best friend for a drink driving accident? And he was like, what? Why are you even asking that? What are you talking about? Of course not. I should have been like, but what if that person was me? That's so dark. That's really dark. Actually, this is horrible. But the way that I cackled, like, happens to the best of us. It was just a bad night. Oh, big deal. She reads him the letter. Chapter 33. Kenna. I've gone over the day you died so many times. I once wrote every single second of that day down on paper. Most of it was an estimate, of course. I don't know if I actually spent a minute and a half brushing my teeth that morning, or if the break I took at work really was 15 minutes a second, or if you really spent 50... This is giving me, like, Breaking Dawn flashbacks. If we really spent 57 minutes at the party we went to that night. So she remembers all of this part quite clearly. Remember that. They went to a party of Scotty's friends. They stole a 12-pack of beer and they drive to a lake and they have leftover edibles. You'd had more to drink than me, so you asked me to drive. It wasn't like us to drink and drive, but I think we felt invincible under that moonlight. We were young and in love, and surely no one dies when they're at their happiest. We were also high, so our decisions were slightly more impaired that night, but for whatever the reason, you asked me to drive, and for whatever reason, I didn't tell you I shouldn't. I got into the car, knowing that I had tripped on the gravel as I reached for the door. I still got behind the wheel, even though I had to blink really hard to make sure the car was in drive and not in reverse. And I still chose to drive us away from the lake, even though I was too drunk to remember how to turn down the volume. Coldplay was blasting so loud over the radio, it was making my ears hurt. But this is the letter that changes everyone's mind about her, by the way. They crash. A lot of people are lucky after a wreck because they don't remember the details. They have recollections of things that happened before the wreck and after the wreck, but over time, every single second of that night has come back to me, whether I wanted it or not. Kenna realizes that Scotty is unresponsive and covered in blood. She tries to pull him, but his arm is trapped. She can't find his phone. She tries to break the windshield, but can't. She doesn't feel a pulse, so she just starts running up the highway. As you do. I don't know how long I was on the side of the road. Cars were passing me, and I still had your blood on my hands, and I was scared and angry and couldn't stop seeing your mother's face. I had killed you, and everyone was going to miss you, and you wouldn't be around to make anyone feel appreciated or important anymore, and it was my fault, and I just wanted to die. Doesn't flag down any of those cars passing by. Instead, she just tries to get hit by a car several times instead of getting help from any of them. How did CoHo think this was the twist that was going to get people on Kenna's side? It did, though, by those 5-star reviews. I got hunked at and cussed at, but no one put me out of my misery, and no one helped me. Yeah, because they probably thought that you were trying to do a false insurance claim or something, like this film called Consenting Adults, where I forget that guy's name, the one who was in trouble. That film, Consenting Adults. She goes to her apartment with the idea of jumping off her balcony to be with Scotty instead of, I don't know, calling 911, letting anyone know what had happened. Then her memory blacks out despite all of that stuff about memorizing the night perfectly beforehand. Very convenient. She wakes up in a puddle of blood in her bedroom with the police arresting her. Them. This is an interrogation. Did you know he was still alive when we found him an hour and a half ago? Me. Screams. Lots of screams. Screams until they put me back in a cell and said they'd come back for me when I calmed down. When I calmed down. I didn't calm down, Scotty. I think I lost a little bit of my mind that day. Oh, please stop. Please, I beg. Turns out your heart was still beating. It was just your arm that had died. I could go into more gruesome details about how it was so horribly crushed and mangled during the wreck that the blood flow was completely cut off, and that's why I touched you and thought you were dead, and how, despite all of that, you still... What, she wouldn't just, like, check here for a pulse? She would only go for the arm, she wouldn't check... And you still somehow woke up and got out of the car and tried to get the help I never brought back to you. This is lovely and grim, but also, so his arm, the one that was mangled and crushed, was what was preventing him from getting in the car. I remember he was crawling for 6 hours before he died. So he would have had to have done a 127 hours, not days, to be dead. And he would have had to have ripped off his arm to get out of that car. He clearly died from, blood loss, though I'm pretty sure you'd lose the blood if you've been drinking a lot quicker than 6 hours if you had to. But, I can't interpret this in any other way than he would have had to have, because how would he have got out? His arm was dead, mangled, crushed under something. He would have had to have torn it off to get out of the car, and then he died alone. Do you forgive Kenna, knowing her side? She pleads guilty so she can go to prison and be away from everyone. She never takes the stand or makes a statement or even speaks to Scotty's parents. It wasn't until later, after I was given an IV for dehydration, that I found out I had been sentenced to 7 years in prison with the eligibility for parole even sooner than that. 7 years, I remember thinking. That's bullshit. That isn't nearly long enough. I try not to think about what it must have been like for you in that car after I left you there. What must you have thought of me? Did you think I'd been thrown from the car? Were you looking for me? Or did you know that I'd left you there all alone? This bit is actually horrible, and I don't feel horrible for her, I feel horrible for him. Imagine that. Imagine thinking oh God, I'm dying and I've been left all alone. But maybe he thought Kenna was injured somewhere, so he spent his last 6 hours crawling around trying to make sure she was okay, while she just ran down the street and went home and passed out. So sorry, actually going through this and reading this out loud, verbalizing these words, I do not feel bad I feel bad for him. She's horrible. It's the time you spent alone that night that I know haunts us all, because we'll never know what you went through. What were you thinking? Who were you calling out to? What your final minutes were like? I can't imagine a more painful way for your mother and father to be forced to live out the rest of their lives. But we should feel bad for Kenna, because she feels bad. She just made a silly mistake. Teehee. She repeatedly says sorry to Scotty's parents, silently, to herself in this letter. Doesn't once try to reach out to them or write them an actual letter. In 5 years. Nothing. So I can see why they haven't even tried to forgive her. I am not a bad person, and I know you know that, wherever you are. And I know you forgive me. It's just who you are. I only hope one day our daughter will forgive me too. And your parents. Read the room, Kenna. Chapter 34. Kenna. Ledger gets out of the truck and starts throwing chairs around as you do. He's not mad at Kenna, but he had to scare her a bit, I guess. Agony spreads across his face as he continues. What if Scotty can see how we've been treating you? A tear forms and spills down his cheek. Just one lonely tear, and it makes me so sad. I'm part of everything that's been tearing you down all these years, and I'm sorry, Kenna. I'm so sorry. Bro, what if Scotty can see you nailing his ex-girlfriend? Then they have sex in the truck after all of that, because nothing gets me in the mood like knowing how my best friend gruesomely bled to death because his girlfriend was an idiot. And oh yes, I'm about to have sex with that same girlfriend. What is this? I need a lobotomy after reading this. I'm not even kidding. Also, all this talk of Scotty, wherever you are, imagine canonically in this universe, there is an afterlife. And imagine the day that they finally meet Scotty again. How awkward would that be? Would they just enter a throuple? Would they just take turns on Kenna? Would they fight over her? Chapter 35, Ledger. They get to working on the house because they've got that post-nut clarity focus. She smiled and laughed more in the last few hours than she has since the day I met her. It makes me wonder if I've been a huge chunk of the weight she's been carrying. I love that the whole I want my daughter plot has taken a backseat to romancing a mid-man, which is classic. Teehee. Just CoHo things. I don't say that out loud though, because I don't want to diminish any of the other wonderful things about her by giving her a superficial compliment about her face. It would take away from how smart I think she is, how compassionate, resilient. Smart? The emotionally immature drunk driver who got herself a restraining order barely a few weeks out of prison? Okay. Ledger's parents turn up mid-squeezing Kenna's boob. They lie to the parents and introduce Kenna as Nicole. We're almost to my truck when I realise what leaving my parents alone means. I pause and say, I'll be right back. I point to the truck so Kenna knows she can go ahead without me. I turn around and walk back to the house, and then I lean in at the doorway. Do not have sex in my house. Okay, this is about Kenna. She rests her head against my shoulder, and after a quiet moment she says, I wish I could have seen you with Scotty. I bet you two were fun together. Bro is so second best to Scotty for the rest of his life. I love that she admitted that out loud. It feels good to hear, because at some point we're all going to have to move past the fact that Scotty died the way he did. I think I'm at a point where I want his memory to be accompanied by only good feelings. I want to be able to talk about him with people, especially his father, but in a way that doesn't make Patrick cry. You mean, at some point we're going to have to move past it, so let's do it now so I can continue banging Kenna in peace. Fix that for you. I wish I could have seen you with Scotty, I admit. Odd, but whatever floats your boat, cuck boy. He drops Kenna off home and has a barbecue with his parents. His mother reveals that she knows Kenna's true identity because she recognised her when she first walked into his bar at the beginning of the book. Then she gives absolutely no useful advice. My mother looks at me honestly. Scotty wasn't my child, so I felt sorry for everyone involved, even Kenna. But if what happened to Scotty had happened to you, I can't say that I would have made a different choice than Patrick and Grace. I think there's room in a tragedy this size for everyone to be both right and wrong. However, she says, I'm your mother, and if you see something special in her, then I know there must be something special in her. Okay, Switzerland, chapter 36, Kenna. Ledger comes around to Kenna's. They want to have sex. What I feel is terrified. I know in my heart that there's nothing he can say that will change the Landry's mind about me. They aren't even wrong. The decision they're making for themselves is the right decision because it's the decision that will bring them the most peace. I'm going to respect that decision. After tonight. But right now, I'm going to be selfish and focus on the one person in the world who sees me the way I wish everyone else could. And if that means I have to lie to him and pretend this story can possibly have a happy ending, then that's what I'll do. All of these mind games just to have a quick shag. They have sex, shower together, and Kenna starts moaning again, but not in that way. Maybe he'll say something to them that will plant a seed, and that seed will grow and grow until they start to feel empathy for me. She hasn't tried once to tell them her side of things so that maybe they could empathize. But regardless, you aren't owed these people's empathy. Chapter 37, Ledger. Kenna is late for work. Oh shit, I'll give you a ride. I search for my clothes. I find my shirt, but Kenna's kitten is curled up inside of it. I lift her and set her on the couch and start to pull on my jeans. Kenna is in the bathroom brushing her teeth. The door is open and she's completely naked, so I freeze in the middle getting dressed because she's got a perfect ass. He goes home to his parents, Grace, Patrick, and DM. Patrick is off of him immediately. He saw Ledger's truck at Kenna's apartment. We've all been wrong about her, I say it unconvincingly. I don't know about that, my dude. It was an accident, Patrick. My voice is almost a whisper. She loved Scotty. She panicked and made the wrong choice, but she paid for that choice. At what point can we stop blaming her? He chooses to answer that with his fist. He punches me hard in the mouth. You deserve that. I also hate the devaluing of what she did. I've made loads of mistakes. Wrong choices, done the wrong things, bad decisions, but no one's ever died because of my mistakes. So she turns her back to me and disappears with DM inside her house. I can hear DM cry even after the door closes, and I feel like she just ripped my chest open. Don't you dare try to put your choices on us, Patrick says. You can choose that woman or you can choose DM, but don't you dare try to make us feel guilty for a choice we came to peace with 5 years ago. You did this to yourself, Ledger. Patrick turns and walks back inside. I wish they gave him a hard time for this forever, but it gets solved soon, don't worry. Ledger leaves and goes to Romans, and they go to the ER because of his face. Chapter 38, Kenna. Ledger picks her up from work. I came here with one goal, and that was to try to forge a relationship with the Landrys with my daughter. But they've made it very clear it's not something they want. Maybe it's just not something they can emotionally handle. Took her this long to realise other people have complex feelings too, huh? This apartment, this town, this state. I want as far away from my daughter as I can get, because the closer I am to her without being able to see her, the more tempting it becomes just to go to their house and take her. I'm desperate enough that if I stay here too much longer, I might do something stupid. Very smart. Wait, he says, stepping towards me. You're leaving? You're giving up? His choice of words make me angry. I'd say I tried pretty damn hard. They have a restraining order against me. I wouldn't call that giving up. She literally didn't try to do anything at all other than chase Grace down a parking lot like a deranged banshee. She starts packing her stuff. I lean forward and press my elbows into the counter, and I hold my head in my hands and I cry even harder because I'm angry. I allowed myself to get my hopes up. It's been well over 5 years since it happened. If they were ever going to forgive me, they'd have done it by now. They're just not the forgiving type. You killed their son, you vile little cretin. You are not entitled to their forgiveness. He laughs through his pain, taking the card from me, but then he winces and drops his forehead to mine. I'm so angry at them, Kenna. This isn't fair. Betrayer. Ledger leaves. Chapter 39. Ledger. Ledger goes over to Patrick and Grace's. I look them both in the eye. DM wanted to show me her turtle. The sentence is so simple, but I'm saying so much. That sentence translates to, I chose DM. Let's go back to the way things were. You know, Colleen, I never would have worked that one out by myself, so cheers, mate. Thanks for that. It's forgiveness and acceptance, but it's not the forgiveness I really want for them, but I take it. You aren't entitled to anyone's forgiveness. But they also know how much DM loves me, so even if the three of us can't work our shit out, I know I'll always be a huge part of DM's life, and as long as I'm a part of DM's life, I'm going to fight for what's best for her. I should have been doing it all along, and what's best for DM is having her mother in her life. It's not your choice to make, but okay. As soon as Kenna closed her bathroom door, I closed her apartment door and pretended to leave. Instead, I grabbed her phone. The password was an easy guess, DM's birthday. I opened her Google Docs and found the file with the letters she's written to Scotty, and I forwarded the file to my email address before sneaking out. That's gross, but okay. And you know where this is going, right? You know he's going to show them the awful letter where she basically just reaffirms that she was an idiot and left him for dead and didn't call the police. And somehow they're going to be all, OMG, we were wrong. You're not a murderer. You're just stupid. But regardless of that, Kenna has still done absolutely nothing to try to bridge the gap between her and Scotty's parents. It's all been left up to some bloke to save the day. What a passive, useless protagonist. I have something I need to say, and I really don't want to yell, but I will if I have to, so I think we should go outside because I don't want to wake up DM. Patrick closes the dishwasher. We don't really want to hear what you have to say, Ledger. He motions towards the door. You should go. I have a lot of empathy for them, but I'm afraid I've just met my limit. A wave of heat climbs up my neck, and I try to push down my anger, but it's so hard when I've given them so much. I recall the words Kenna said to me right before I left. Please don't hate them. I've given my life to that little girl, I say. You owe this to me. I'm not leaving your property until we talk about this. He's annoying. Also, you can't do good things like help take care of your dead best friend's kid just to use it to your advantage and just to throw it in someone's face. Like, that's not heroic. That's not how that works. I know you both know that. And I also know you're just trying to protect yourselves from the pain Kenna's actions caused. But you're taking the worst moment of Kenna's life and you're making that moment who she is. That isn't fair. Is it fair? I guess I wouldn't know because I've never killed someone and had that used against me. You know what? Maybe it's not fair. Maybe I'm the wrong one. Maybe I'm overreacting to someone dying young for a completely preventable accident. Maybe I'm the toxic, horrible one. Maybe I'm the asshole. She writes letters to him, to Scotty. She's been doing it for 5 years. This is the only one I've read, but it was enough to change my entire opinion of her. I pause and then backtrack on my words. Actually, that's not true. I forgave Kenna before I even knew the contents of the letter. But the second she read this out loud to me, I realised she's just been hurting as much of all of us. And we're slowly killing her by continuing to drag out her pain. I squeeze my forehead and put even more emphasis on the words I'm about to speak. We're keeping a mother from her child. That's not the agenda. That's not okay. Scotty will be so mad at us. Bro, she is not the victim here. And you can't claim to know how Scotty would feel because Scotty is dead. Thanks to Kenna. He gives them the letter to read. Why did November 9 and Verity both end like this as well? CoHo, you're such a hack. I drop my head in my hands. I start to cry. I can't help it. I feel like the lives of everyone I love are hanging in this moment. Knows girl for week, but sure, he loves her too. Chapter 40, Kenna. I hate that my choices from that one night ago have somehow created another casualty all these years later. Yes, breaking up with a dude you've known for a few weeks is definitely the same as leaving someone to die an agonizing, lonely death. A death in which he must have had to have torn off his own arm to get out the vehicle to crawl up the road, slowly, probably looking for you, before just dying. I hate Kenna. Screw her. I said it. Screw her. She's so selfish. Screw her. I don't care about her. I care about the poor bloke who died because of her. Despite the devastation I've left in my wake, I am not a bad person. I am not a bad person. Who are you trying to convince? If you have to convince people you're not a bad person, then maybe I don't know. You shouldn't have to say it, right? It should be self-evident. Anyway, Ledger returns with Grace and Patrick. I back into my apartment, but tears are spilling from my eyes. There's so much I want to say to her. Wait, no, maybe it's just Grace. I forget. So many apologies. So many promises. You know, maybe if you'd bothered doing that once over the course of 5 years, we wouldn't have had to have read this entire book. Grace gives Kenna this $4,000 gold ring that she and Scotty once found in an antique store, but they were too broke to buy it. Scotty had loaned money from his mum to pay for it. Kenna don't know about this. I don't know how she can go from hating me to forgiving me in such a short amount of time. Well, the story is ending in about 20 pages, so the plot kind of requires a neatly tied up happily ever after. I'm so sorry, Kenna, she says that with such sincerity. I'm responsible for keeping you from your daughter for 5 years, and there's no excuse for that. Pathetic. Grace invites Kenna over for dinner that same day. I liked her better when she had a spine. And Kenna falls in love with Ledger in this exact moment. If you can't tell, it's all very rushed. I'm going to respect their rules. I'll respect their timeline and their choices and their wishes. I'm going to show them as much respect as I know they've shown my daughter. This is the first time she's done that all book. She meets DM. I really don't care much for this because I've never crapped out an entire melon from my vagina. So I guess it makes me incapable of giving a shit. I don't know. I realise that this moment isn't nearly as monumental to DM as it is to me. I've played out a million scenarios in my head of how this will go, and in every scenario, DM was either sad or angry that it took me so long to be a part of her life. But she truly didn't even know that I was missing. Get wrecked. Ledger walks out onto the porch and sees us talking. He comes over to us and stands behind me, wrapping his arms around me. He kisses the side of my head, right when DM turns and looks at us. Gross. Bro, just wait until you're 18 and they tell you the story about how your mummy drunk drove and left your daddy for dead and then shacked up with his best friend, aka your new stepdaddy. Teehee. Ledger takes over, pushing DM's swing, and I sit down in the swing next to her and watch them. DM tips her head back and looks at Ledger. Are you going to marry my mum? I probably should have a reaction to the marriage part of that question, but my brain only focuses on the fact that she just said my mum. This seems quick, but again, what would I know? I don't have a kid. I start to walk out the kitchen, but my steps feel so heavy. I have so much I want to say to Grace that I didn't have the chance to say to her earlier at my apartment today. I turn around, and I'm sorry is on the tip of my tongue, but I feel like if I open my mouth, I'll cry. My eyes meet Grace's, and she can see the agony in my expression. Grace, my voice is a whisper. She immediately walks over to me and pulls me in for a hug. She actually manages to go the entire book with never saying sorry to Scotty's parents for killing their son. This is incredible. Colleen Hoover, I take it all back. I love you. The audacity. Merry Christmas. We go forward, she says. That's it. It's that simple. I forgive you and you forgive me. And we go forward together and give that little girl the best life we can, okay? I nod. Because I can do that. I forgive them. I've always forgiven them. Have you really? Have you really? It's myself I've been hard on. But I think I've reached the point that forgiving myself finally feels okay. So I do. You're forgiven, Kenna. I was cackling reading this. I'm sure Scotty is so pleased to hear this. Chapter 41. Ledger. Why won't this book end? DM reaches a hand towards Kenna and she accepts it. DM effortlessly slips off my lap and onto Kenna's. It happens so fast and quietly. DM tucks herself into Kenna and Kenna wraps her arms around DM as if it's the most natural thing in the world. This is all in the same day, the same meeting. As if. Such an agenda. I could tell Patrick and Grace were pleasantly surprised at how different she is from what we all expected her to be. It proves that time, distance, and devastation allows people enough opportunity to craft villains out of people they don't even know. But Kenna was never a villain. She was a victim. We all were. Why are the grandparents always getting blamed? For like Kenna did the thing, they had a normal reaction to it, and yet they're getting blamed. Because I guess like the only emotions that matter are Kenna's, right? Like, the only distress that matters is Kenna's distress, not, like, these grandparents who lost their son forever because of her. Okay. When we arrived at Kenna's place, Grace turned to me before exiting my truck, and she said, "Are you in love with her?" There was absolutely no hesitation when I nodded. Why? There was no hesitation after that question either. You'll see. She makes it a hell of a lot easier to love her than hate her. Does she? I've not noticed. Patrick and Ledger sit together to talk. There's this private joke between them about a pigeon. It came up early in the book, and I didn't mention it because I didn't care. Because once Scotty and Ledger got high and they saw a bird and Scotty said, "Is that a flippin' pigeon?" Holy shit, Patrick says. I look over at him, but his focus is on something in the backyard. I follow his line of sight until, no way. I'll be damned, I say quietly. Is that a flippin' pigeon? It is. It's an actual pigeon. A real live white and grey pigeon. Just walking around in the backyard like this isn't the most miraculous timing a bird has ever had in the history of birds. What do you mean actual pigeon? They aren't phoenixes. They're pretty common. Do Americans, does America not get pigeons much? Patrick laughs and doesn't cry for once because he's finally healing thanks to Kenna doing absolutely nothing. I'm looking forward to getting Kenna all to myself tonight, in an actual bed. The few times we've been together have been damn near perfect, but I've always felt she deserved better than an inflatable mattress or my truck or a hardwood floor. Cool. They say romance is dead. Get you a guy who wants to do it in a real bed with you. I bring my hand up to her face and touch her impeccable mouth again. I spent the last couple of years trying to be a good role model for DM, so I've read a few books on feminism. Brilliant. I learned that putting too much focus on a girl's looks can be damaging, so instead of telling DM how pretty I think she is, I put the focus on things that matter, like how smart she is and how strong. I've tried treating you the same way. It's why I've never complimented your looks before or told you how beautiful I think you are. But I'm glad I never told you before this moment, because you've never been more beautiful than you are right now. I kissed the tip of her nose. Happiness looks good on you, Kenna. Feminist king Matthew Rife could never. They say they love each other after a few weeks. Which, okay, fine. I've read enough of these. I'm used to it by now. I'm used to it. The love bombing, used to it. Ledger decides he won't move into the new house that he was building. He will sell it instead because change is for chumps. I can't stop thinking about that effing pigeon. What are the chances Scotty had no connection to that? What are the chances he did? It could have just been a coincidence, but it could have also been a sign, a message from wherever he is. What is this? Attack on Titan? Still never saw the rest of the anime after I read that manga. I go through many nemesis. Right now, Christopher Nolan is my main nemesis. No, Chris Nolan, as I know him, Chris. But Izayama made a nemesis for life with that rubbish. I'm going to be so good to your girl, Scotty. I promise. Why could this so easily be a horror? Boy spends life jealous of best friend and best friend's family, replaces best friend's girlfriend, replaces him after an untimely death. What if the real Scotty was the Ledger that we met along the way? Chapter 42, Kenna. Why won't it end? Why has this book not ended yet? I lead her to the edge of the road where I first found the cross, and I kick around in the grass and dirt with the toe of my sneaker until I find the hole the cross was in. I hand the cross to DM. See that hole? She leans forward to inspect the ground. Stick it right there. DM drives the cross into the hole. Why are we putting this here? I push down on the cross, making sure it's stable, because it will make your nana happy to know it's here in case she ever drives by. I had forgotten, like, this was the first thing that she did when she came back to town, removing the cross, because she's a psychopath. Like, because no one else is allowed to grieve on... No, that's it, innit? No one's allowed to grieve on their terms. Scotty's parents aren't allowed to do the things that bring them some solace. It's got to be all about Kenna and what Kenna deems. Like, so they can't grieve on their own terms and they can't forgive on their own terms. It has to be forced upon them. Like, to suit Kenna, to make her life easier. I hate her. It's been 5 months and they are already discussing giving DM a little sibling. Like, calm down. Music still makes me think of Scotty, but thinking of Scotty no longer makes me sad. Now that I've forgiven myself, the reminders of him only make me smile. It's over. Finally. Epilogue. DM is now 7. She lives between her grandparents and Ledger's house. The last name I handed out 2 weeks ago was by far one of the most important ones, yet somehow the easiest name to come up with. When they placed our newborn son on my chest, I looked down at him through teary eyes and I said, "Hi, Scotty. Love, Kenna." I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting actual goosebumps by how stupid this is. Yes, she named her newborn son Scotty after the guy she killed. A newborn son who she shares with the dead guy's best friend. What is this book, dude? There's also a playlist of Kenna's safe songs, which is a nice touch to some people, I'm sure. Was this the most offensive of CoHo's books? Actually, honestly, no. The biggest issue is that no one seems to really care about how devastating drink driving and, like, killing someone is. Which, when CoHo handles these heavier topics, it always makes me feel like, does she have any like, you shouldn't really pry, but does she have an anecdotal experience of these things? Like, drink driving in particular, in my hometown, loads of people died. Like, around my age when I was in college, like, loads of classmates died because of drink driving. Like, what I kept thinking of when I was reading this book, there was this man, I remember when I was a young kid, this man, he used to come and knock on our door and he'd collect money for the lottery. It wasn't a postcode lottery, I think he worked for the post office, so he'd collect like money for the lottery, and it's just a thing, and I'd give him money and be like, oh, and then one day he just wasn't around anymore, and I asked my mum, oh, whatever happened to that lottery man? And she said he died in a car accident because the person who drove into him was drink driving, and he just died. And I always found that really sad. A relatively random person to me, a relative stranger, but I think of that actually more often than one would think, because it just seems so senseless, so preventable, so just stupid. I remember thinking, I hope nothing but the worst for that person who decided to get in that car after drinking and killed like this poor man. I still hope nothing but the worst for that person who was drink driving. I hope they went to prison, and I hope that they go fuck themselves. You're not allowed to say that word on YouTube too much. Apparently 3 of those words, and you don't get demonetized, but you get restricted. So I just use one of them up because, like, honestly, fuck that guy. It's something that stuck with me a lot. And like I said, there were quite a few people in my college who died because they drunk drove or drove high. You know, it was a thing that happened. So I just kept thinking when I was reading this, like, it's so senseless and it's such a preventable and stupid way for people to go. Infuriating, really, when I think of like some of my mates I had when I was 17. They died when I was 17. Can you imagine that? Imagine dying at 17 because of something that was so preventable. I just kept feeling like, CoHo, do you actually have any experience of like what it's like for that? I would assume so. I would assume that all of us know someone who's. Am I wrong for assuming that all of us would know what like that's like to know someone who's died from this? I would feel like it's a kind of ubiquitous experience because it happens quite frequently, right? But it just makes me feel like she doesn't have empathy in that regard. She's making the aggressor in the way, the victim of it. It really, like, that it's really bothered me because whilst reading this book I feel as though CoHo wants me to be shrugging and being, oh, but Kenna did 5 years in prison, get over it already, losers, she like did her time, get over it, why aren't you over it already? I feel like that the book wanted me to think that way. And even with that, if you compare this book to the other ones I've reviewed, the downright nonsensical abuse that is glamorized in all the other books, somehow this wasn't the worst, and yet she's justifying and trying to humanize drink driving and killing someone. The only positive going for it is that at the very least there were no scenes of sexual assault. Unfortunately, that is somehow considered a win for a CoHo book. 1 out of 10, I will never read it again. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys think of it. I feel like these books gaslight me. I always feel at the end, like, am I just insane? Am I wrong? Am I overreacting? Am I XYZ? I feel like these books are gaslighting me. What a stupid hill to die on, CoHo. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. I can't believe I did this all in one sitting. I am tired. I'm going to go get my Indian food and cry over how good it is. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'll see you all next time. Bye.